मानुषी संवाद में आप सबका स्वागत है और कल के गणतंत्र दिवस की आप सबको शुभकामनाएं। परंतु हम कुछ एक सवाल उठाने के लिए गणतंत्र दिवस का जिस तरह हमारे देश में नेहरू के काल से शुरुआत हुई इसको सेलिब्रेट करने की, और क्योंकि ये दिवस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डे इस दिन अडॉप्ट हुआ था 1950 में कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, तो इन दोनों सवालों पर, हमारे संविधान पर कुछ एक इम्पोर्टेंट इश्यूज हैं उससे जुड़े हुए, इन सब की चर्चा के लिए आज हमारे साथ एक तो नागेश्वर राव जी हैं और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के मुद्दों पे बहुत इनका तीखा अध्ययन है। दूसरे हमारे साथ हैं स्वराज्य के एडिटर जगन्नाथन जी, जग्गी फॉर शॉर्ट। Welcome to both of you. Both of you are among the sharpest brains I know on issues of constitution, governance, and also cultural, civilizational issues. So, civilizational issues से ही जोड़ के हम ये आज की चर्चा करेंगे। नागेश्वर जी कहाँ गायब हो गए? नागेश्वर जी प्लीज आ जाओ। थैंक यू। तो मैं बहुत साल पहले एक लेख लिखा था मैंने, मानुषी में पब्लिश हुआ था, करीब 15 साल पहले की बात है, जिसमें उसका टाइटल था, शीर्षक था रिपब्लिक डे विदाउट द पब्लिक। और जो मुख्य बात मैंने कही थी कि नेहरू के जमाने से ये हमने रिपब्लिक डे को सेलिब्रेट करने का बहुत सोवियत स्टाइल मॉडल अपनाया है। यानी जो परेड होती है उसमें सबसे पहले मिलिट्री माइट जाती है, एक के बाद एक कंटिंजेंट आर्मी के कितने बटालियन हैं, कितने ब्रिगेड हैं, फिर नेवी, फिर एयरफोर्स, फिर सीआरपीएफ, फिर बीएसएफ, फिर वगैरह वगैरह। So first is that muscular military might. Now it surprises me because at one level Nehru ji was so callous towards the interest of the Indian army. उन्होंने आर्मी को बिल्कुल रिडंडेंट समझा और ये कहते थे पुलिस से काम चल जाएगा, हमें जरूरत ही नहीं है। और इतनी कमजोर स्थिति में आर्मी थी कि जब चाइना ने वॉर किया हमारे ऊपर तो कोई ढंग के कपड़े भी नहीं थे उन ठंडी पहाड़ियों पे लड़ने के लिए। तो एक तरफ तो वो, दूसरा यहाँ पे रिपब्लिक डे है, उसके में ये मिलिट्री डिस्प्ले होता है, टैंक्स का और फाइटिंग गन्स का और वगैरह वगैरह, मार्च कर रहे हैं सोल्जर्स वन आफ्टर द अदर। उसके बाद क्या आता है, फिर झांकियां आएंगी या कुछ करतब करते हुए मोटरसाइकिल पे आर्मी के ही जवान, और फैग एंड पे आप देखेंगे बच्चे, स्कूल के बच्चे आते हैं मार्च करते हुए, नाचते गाते हुए। तो पब्लिक एक तो इस परेड में बिल्कुल पीछे और टोकन रोल, और जो देखने वालों में को भी आपने देखा बिल्कुल पैसिव रोल है। You compare it to July 4th celebrations in America. You know, people are out on the street celebrating. हमारे देश में केवल छुट्टी है, अभी टेलीविजन है तो ठीक है जी, लोगों ने टेलीविजन ऑन करके देख लिया, नहीं तो उसका रिपब्लिक डे का पास मिलना, वो देख पाना, वीआईपी फंक्शन है, वीआईपी को मजबूरी जाना पड़ता है, वो जाना चाहे ना चाहे, डिप्लोमेट्स को जरूरी बैठना पड़ता है, उनका मन हो या ना हो। तो ये जो फॉर्म है रिपब्लिक डे विदाउट एनी रोल in it for the public, don't you think we need to reconsider this? बताइए जगी।
हाँ, certainly we need to do that. As there's an old saying that if you can't give bread, give them circuses. So Republic Day is one way of saying that ठीक है भाई, और कुछ नहीं है तो मेला जैसे एक एटमॉस्फेयर कर देंगे, और मेला में तो लोग आते हैं, लेकिन ये सिर्फ माने एक दिखावे के लिए कर रहे हैं। I'm not unhappy with the fact that we do show military might, because for a long time we have sort of tried to say that we're all non-violence, ahimsa, and all that. So in that sense, I think it is a good thing, but I think it should be done on probably a different day when
Yes.
we don't do it necessarily on that. We just say, okay,
नहीं,
Dharmik might
armed
day or whatever you want
forces.
to say, and on that day
Why
you
not
show.
have an armed forces day?
Yeah, yeah. On the day when you have the Astra Shastra Puja, on the day after that or something, if you do that, that's a good ideal time for us. So certainly, yeah, we have just taken to the Soviet and Chinese style, version of the show, and I think we need to involve the people a little more than just as spectators. I think they need to be far more involved in it. And I think from day one, we have liked the spectacle more than the reality. And in order to entertain the people, they keep doing that. And we even have meaningless battles about whether the West Bengal float was rejected or not rejected, and that kind of nonsense. But the essence of this being a republic where people are the primary focus actually is missing. And I think it's high time we change that. And it's not just the Republic Day. I mean, the underlying constitution, which has been brought out by colonized minds, is also in need of an overhaul. So we need to look at both the natak in front of you and the the drama book on which this whole natak is staged. So we need to look at both.
I agree with you. Now, Nageshwarji, what I'd like to share with you is an interesting fact. जब मोदी जी गुजरात के चीफ मिनिस्टर थे, तो उन्होंने वहां पे सेलिब्रेशन का ढंग बिल्कुल बदल दिया था. नंबर 1, अगस्त 15 को, या ये मेरे लिए खैर अगस्त 15 तो सेलिब्रेशन हो ही नहीं सकता, पार्टीशन डे है. वो डे ऑफ नेशनल मोर्निंग होना चाहिए, होलोकॉस्ट डे होना चाहिए. खैर, पर मोदी जी ने 26 जनवरी और अगस्त 15 को जो उन्होंने एक नया मॉडल गुजरात में किया था. एक तो अहमदाबाद में नहीं, वो खुद सेलिब्रेट करते थे, हर बार एक नए डिस्ट्रिक्ट में, हर बार उस नए डिस्ट्रिक्ट हेडक्वार्टर में मैसिव 2 दिन का, उसमें 3-4 चीजें मुझे एकाएक यहाँ बैठे बैठे याद आ गया. सुबह नहीं याद आया था जब मैंने ये टाइटल आपको दिया. तो क्या उसका फॉर्मेट होता था कि 25 को जाके जैसे नरेंद्र मोदी बहुत से डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम इनॉग्रेट करते थे, जो उस डिस्ट्रिक्ट के डीएम को बताया होता था कि आपके इस साल के ये कार्यक्रम आपको पूरे करने हैं. चाहे वो कोई नया स्कूल की बिल्डिंग है, या कुछ नई सड़क बनी है, या कोई अस्पताल पशुओं का खुला, मतलब 25-30 मेजर वहां पे डिस्ट्रिक्ट में 25-30 इनॉग्रेशन होती थी. कई सारी जगह पे मोदी जी का संवाद होता होता लोगों से, और अगले दिन फिर लंबा कल्चरल प्रोग्राम. और उस डिस्ट्रिक्ट के सबसे यूनिक बात जो अभी मुझे ताजा हुई याद उसकी, कि उस डिस्ट्रिक्ट के जितने भी महत्वपूर्ण योगदान देने वाले व्यक्ति, उनका सम्मान. ये नहीं कि गुजराती ओवरऑल गुजराती जीनियसेस का, पर उस डिस्ट्रिक्ट के लोगों का, उनमें जो कोई अच्छे लेखक हैं, अच्छे समाज सेवक हैं, कोई साइंटिस्ट है, जो भी, उनका सम्मान होता था. और उस डिस्ट्रिक्ट की एक विशिष्ट पहचान, उसके इतिहास के बारे में डांस ड्रामा होता था. So you would get a crash course on that particular district where Modi ji would have the program celebrated for 26 January. थोड़ी देर की परेड वरेड भी होती थी, but that was a small part. But otherwise वाकई it became a public उत्सव, और दूर दराज से रात तक मतलब लोग आके वो जो कल्चरल प्रोग्राम है, जिसमें वहां के उसी डिस्ट्रिक्ट के लोग वो परफॉर्म करते थे, और उसके उसी डिस्ट्रिक्ट के लोग फिर आके उसको देख रहे हैं, उस डिस्ट्रिक्ट की कहानियां, उस डिस्ट्रिक्ट के विशिष्टताएं. अब मोदी जी प्लीज दिल्ली में भी आके कुछ कीजिए वैसा ही. You are very innovative in many things. What do you think of this, Nageshwar ji? कि ये जो सोवियत स्टाइल सेलिब्रेशन, isn't it time we change it before we discuss the constitution and what changes there we need in our thinking?
Both of you have already said that no, the about the Soviet style or militaristic celebration of the Republic Day. The fundamental problem is not the celebration, but the source of celebration. Because the constitution, there is nothing in the constitution that the people align themselves with. Because this constitution is not ours. It is simply a colonial constitution, which is patterned or which is paraphrased version of the Government of India Act 1935. It is alien, its jurisprudence is alien, its fundamental rights is alien, its source is alien, its language is alien, its structure is alien, its aims and objects are alien. So, therefore, people don't attach themselves much to this constitution. So, therefore, it is impossible for people to participate in a larger way to celebrate the Constitution Day or the Republic Day. That is the fundamental problem. Because we celebrate festival because we have an emotional attachment to the festival. We celebrate Krishna Janmashtami because we are attached to Bhagavan Krishna. We celebrate Ram Janmabhoomi because we are attached to Ram. We celebrate Makar Sankranti because we are attached to it. Are we attached to the constitution? It is simply an imposition on India by the British through their agents or the people who constituted the Constituent Assembly. So that is the fundamental problem. Then there is a larger issue of the problem, that is the malice is with the RSS. Of course, we will come later.
नहीं, ये
on-
जो नया चलन चला है नागेश्वर जी, थोड़ा हिंदी में भी बोल लो, मिक्स करो, थोड़ा
Okay.
हिंदी थोड़ा अंग्रेजी,
ठीक
कोशिश
ठीक है,
कीजिए।
आई विल ट्राई।
हाँ,
प्रयास करते हैं।
ये जो अच्छा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन आप स्वयं जानते हैं, दोनों मेरे से ज्यादा जानते हैं, कांग्रेस ने ही कम से कम हमारे संविधान के साथ 100 से ज्यादा बार बलात्कार किया, आनन फानन में अमेंडमेंट्स किए, इमरजेंसी के दौरान तो उसमें ऐसी ऐसी चीजें ला दी गई, उसको सस्पेंड भी कर दिया गया कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल राइट्स को, और उसके बाद जो सोशलिज्म का हमारे ऊपर पहाड़ लाद दिया गया, दैट डेड वेट ऑफ सोशलिज्म एंड सेक्युलरिज्म, ये भी लादा गया। तो ऐसी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन जिसके साथ इतनी छेड़खानी हो चुकी हो, इतने उसके साथ अन्याय हो चुके हो, और फंडामेंटल राइट्स में भी जिसकी हम बहुत गान गाते हैं, इवन राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी फॉर एग्जांपल हटा दी थी इंदिरा गांधी ने, जब प्रिवी पर्सेस को उन्होंने अबॉलिश करना था, या लैंड रिफॉर्म्स का जो अनोखे अनोखे स्वरूप निकले, तो राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी जो बहुत फंडामेंटल राइट है, फ्री सिटीजन, इनफैक्ट थ्रू हिस्ट्री यू वुड नो that right to property is always been a sign of free citizens as opposed to slaves who are not allowed to hold property. वो तो भी हटा दिया, और जब मर्जी होता है किसी भी चीज को सस्पेंड कर देते हैं और अमेंड कर देते हैं। तो ऐसी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को लेके ये जो नया चलन चला है कि ये तो हमारा धर्म, अच्छा मैंने धर्म ग्रंथ नहीं लिखा था क्योंकि धर्म ग्रंथों के साथ हम ऐसा रिश्ता रखते ही नहीं है। हमारी रामायण महाभारत, उनकी कितनी वर्जन्स हैं, hundreds of versions we've allowed, and through ages every age has written its own versions of what should be the dharmic code, its own versions of Ramayana, its own versions of even how you understand and deal with the great Mahabharat. तो जब ऐसी परंपरा में कि हम धर्म ग्रंथों के साथ भी स्लेविश हमारा रिश्ता नहीं है, तो जो नई प्रथा शुरू की है, और मुझे लगता है मोदी जी का इसमें बहुत बड़ा हाथ है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के आगे माथा ऐसे नवाते हो। जरा एडमिन जी वो फोटो लाइए मोदी जी की, जो वो नतमस्तक होके, आपको याद होगा जब 2014 में प्रधानमंत्री पहले दिन पार्लियामेंट जा रहे थे, तो पार्लियामेंट की सीढ़ियों पे भी माथा टेका, हाँ ये देखिए, इसी तरह से साष्टांग प्रणाम किया था पार्लियामेंट के एंट्रेंस को। और हमारे पार्लियामेंट में कोई इतने नेक काम नहीं होते हैं, जरा बड़ी कीजिए इसको, हाँ सीढ़ियों को बताइए। ये तो हम मंदिर जाते हैं जब किसी देवी देवता के दर्शन करने, उस मंदिर में इस तरह हम नतमस्तक होते हैं। वो पार्लियामेंट जिसमें आए दिन भिड़ंतु इतनी अगली डिस्कशंस और मारपीट तक की नौबत आ जाती है, एक दूसरे पे झूठे आरोप लगते हैं, एक दूसरे को गाली गलौज दी जाती है, उसके ऊपर ऐसे नतमस्तक होना, मुझे लगता है ये तो अनोखी एक प्रक्रिया शुरू की है हमारे प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने। आपका क्या कहना है इसके बारे में? यस जगी।
हाँ जी, हाँ, ऐसे जब हम करते हैं माथा, जब बाउ डाउन करते हैं और रिवियर करते हैं, ये सिर्फ अब्राहमिक रिलीजन्स में होता है। कुरान या हदीस या बाइबल को ये सब कर सकते हैं, लेकिन हमारे किताबों में ऐसा नहीं। हाँ, हम उसे सेक्रेड मानते हैं, लेकिन उतना सेक्रेड नहीं मानते हैं कि इसमें कोई बदलाव हो नहीं सकता, और सिर्फ श्रुति बदलाव नहीं कर सकते, बाकी सब तो स्मृति हर बार बहुत ही वापस लिखा सकते हैं। हमारे बहुत सारे सीक्रेट किताब हैं, उसमें इनफैक्ट इफ यू सी द वर्क ऑफ Srikant Talagiri and all, he knows that a lot of changes were there even in the Rig Veda. Some parts were written later and it is widely acknowledged, though we still consider the Vedas very sacred, but we don't do it like as though it is the infallible word of everything that is told. So to call the constitution, संविधान को होली बुक कहना मेरे ख्याल से कंप्लीटली पॉइंटलेस है। ये सब दिखावे के लिए कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि जिस संविधान में 150 से ज्यादा अमेंडमेंट मूव किए गए हैं और उसमें 100 से ज्यादा चेंज भी हो चुके हैं, उसको आप होली बुक कैसे कह सकते हैं? कि वो तो हमारी जैसे स्मृति है, उसको जितना भी बदलना है वो कर सकते हैं, लेकिन जो जिसको बदलना है वो बदली नहीं किया, और जो रहना चाहिए वो उठा दिया। जैसे आपने कहा कि फंडामेंटल राइट्स में प्रॉपर्टी राइट्स निकाल दिया आपने, और बाकी फंडामेंटल राइट्स को बहुत ही कम कर दिया। तो उसमें बहुत सारे क्लॉजेज हैं कि ये, हाँ ये फ्री स्पीच है, लेकिन ये 8 एक्सेप्शंस हैं। वो 8 एक्सेप्शन में सब कुछ आ जाता है। इसलिए मैं क्या कहता हूं कि ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन जो है एक जोक बन चुका है, उसे बहुत सेक्रेट करने से बताने से कुछ नहीं होगा। उसे इंडिया इज रेडी फॉर a completely domestic and internally generated constitution, and we are ready for a second republic. So सिर्फ Republic Day मनाने से कुछ नहीं होगा. We need a second republic with a different constitution that is thought through from the ground up. Of course, even assuming you want to change this constitution, large parts of it have to be dumped. A constitution which does not have basic words like dharma, satya, nyaya, antyodaya, all those things are not there. आप इंग्लिश वर्ड यूज करेंगे डिनोमिनेशन, और उसका ट्रांसलेशन लेकिन आप देंगे संप्रदाय, लेकिन कोर्ट में जाएंगे तो वो डिनोमिनेशन का मीनिंग लेते हैं, संप्रदाय का नहीं। इसलिए जब आप सबरीमला में केस होता है तो वो लोग बोलते हैं कि ये डिनोमिनेशन नहीं है, क्योंकि आपने वो क्रिश्चियन डेफिनेशन को लिया और उसे हिंदू कॉन्टेक्स्ट में आपने कर दिया। हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन नहीं है, एक जोक है। इसलिए कि कोई भी दुनिया का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में 1,50,000 वर्ड्स नहीं होते, क्योंकि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बेसिक प्रिंसिपल्स सेट करता है, उसके बाद में उसके आधार पर आप दूसरे कानून बनते हैं। ये तो लगता है कि पूरा आईपीसी उसमें घुसा दिया, पूरा सीआरपीसी उसमें घुसा दिया, और एक्चुअली कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इतना डिटेल्ड है कि उसका कोई मतलब ही नहीं रहा। इसलिए अभी जो जुडिशरी जो है, इसमें बहुत मजा मिल रहा है, क्योंकि उन्होंने कहा बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर करके एक आर्ग्यूमेंट लेके आ गए। बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर में फंडामेंटल राइट्स में एक पूरा उठाना वो बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर नहीं था। ये लोग लेकिन कुछ भी ला सकते हैं और कहेंगे कि ये बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर है। हम भी क्यों नहीं कहें कि राम राज्य बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर होना चाहिए इंडिया में, वही करने, लेकिन ये लोग बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर क्या है बोलेंगे नहीं, ये सिर्फ बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर अपने मनमानी से हमें ठोप देंगे हमारे सर पे।
Good to see you smile finally, Nageswar ji. You were looking so cross. I was worried. क्या हो रहा है? क्यों आज आप इतने
कुछ नहीं है, because I had second COVID, so
ओह
recently.
ओह,
So
सॉरी टू हियर दैट।
no,
अच्छा,
there
इसको
was no
कोविड
problem.
मत कहो, उसको वायरल कह दो बस। मेरे को
No,
जब भी हुआ है
no,
ना,
I
तो
did
मैंने
not have
सब,
any. It was
हाँ,
asymptomatic,
तो
but
कोविड बहुत बड़ा
nonetheless,
मनहूस शब्द है, इसकी वोकैबुलरी से फेंक डालो।
हाँ,
It's horrible. Treat
करेक्ट।
it like any other fever or flu, and you'll be fine. The
yeah,
moment
no,
you call it COVID,
no,
तो
I'm okay.
साइकोलॉजिकल वॉर इतना हो जाता है। प्लीज, इसमें भी हम चर्चा करने वाले हैं बहुत जल्दी।
I'm okay,
नागेश्वर जी,
no problem.
ये
The only
बेसिक
thing is slightly
स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ
different.
कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, इस पे थोड़ा elaborate कीजिए in a mix of Hindi and English, and also please tell the viewers who may or may not know about its history, how ये कहाँ से कॉपी पेस्ट हुआ है।
Okay.
ये कोई अंबेडकर जी ने रचा नहीं था, और अंबेडकर जी के इसके बारे में क्या व्यूज थे जिनके ऊपर थोपा जाता है इसका श्रेय, वो
ठीक है।
कितने नाखुश थे इस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से, ये जरा प्लीज बताइए।
ठीक है, मैं संक्षिप्त में बताता हूँ। See, in 1888, the Indian National Congress was formed, and thereafter there have been demands that gradually Indians should be involved in the governance of the country. So over a period of time, many commissions and many committees were constituted, and one of the important committee was the Minto-Morley Committee. The Minto-Morley reforms were translated into Government of India Act 1919, whereby the diarchy system was introduced. That means कुछ subjects, कुछ विषय इंडियन मेंबर्स को दिया गया है, कुछ गवर्नर्स के पास रहा। देन उसके बाद में 1935 में the detailed act was enacted by the British Parliament. That is called Government of India Act 1935. It came into force in 1937, and then elections were held. Now, thereafter, the I think twice or thrice elections were held, and then the various independence movements happened. Quit India movement and Second World War, and then thereafter, British decided that Bharat ko तोड़ना है, Pakistan and India. उससे पहले they decided that a constituent assembly banana hai, that we have to have to frame a constitution. Now, there was one B. Narsingh Rao. He is from, I think, Karnataka, Udupi area. He was he made the constitutional advisor, and he was a contemporary of Nehru in Oxford. And Nehru was vice president of the Governor General's Council, and was also, which was equivalent to the Prime Minister, because Governor General was the president of the council. Then in 1946, Nehru was made the interim Prime Minister, and the Constituent Assembly came into existence based on the assemblies which were elected not on adult suffrage. Universal suffrage पे नहीं हुआ. I think only certain kind of people, graduates, people having certain amount of lands, quantity of lands, ऐसा कुछ हुआ था. So total only 15% of the population it represented. The Constituent Assembly represented 15% of the population. Now, interestingly, this B. Narsingh Rao was made when Nehru became the Prime Minister. Narsingh Rao was made the constitutional advisor. And even before anything happened, this B.N. Rao, he was popularly known as B.N. Rao. This B.N. Rao was asked, or himself did, he drafted a constitution. And that constitution is essentially a paraphrased version of the Government of India Act 1935, and in incorporating Government of India Act 1935 did not have the fundamental rights portion. So they incorporated a fundamental rights portion by adopting from various other constitutions, and that draft was ready. So the draft constitution was actually drafted by B.N. Rao, who was contemporary of Nehru. And then how come Nehru was made the prime minister is a big question, because people have not gone into who elected Nehru to become the prime minister of India. He was appointed by the British as the interim prime minister. And why was he appointed? And earlier, why was he appointed as the vice president of the Governor General Council? These are the things which not much research has gone into. So as a result, there's a lot of darkness in this arena. But my little bit of study here and there, it indicates that there seemed to be have been a deal between Nehru and British, that Nehru would be made the Prime Minister of India, and then he would ensure that the Government of India Act would be paraphrased into the Constitution of India. And interestingly, when the Government of India Act 1935 was enacted, the Congress party at that time castigated it as the slave constitution of India. This was the wording, the slave constitution of India. Now, the same slave constitution of India, that is Government of India Act 1935, was paraphrased into the constitution and drafted by the B.N. Rao. And that constitution was presented to the Constituent Assembly. Then the Constituent Assembly constituted, I think, 6-7 committees. One is the drafting committee, of which Ambedkar was made the chairman. And because Ambedkar was also the law minister, naturally he would become the chairman. And it was not drafted by Ambedkar. It is a popular myth that the constitution was not at all drafted by him. But then why Ambedkar was put up as a show as the person who drafted the constitution? This is my hunch. Probably Nehru thought that B.N. Rao, being a Brahmin, and if it is shown that this constitution was drafted by a Brahmin, then there could be resistance from other sections. And Ambedkar, being a Harijan or a Dalit or scheduled caste person, so Nehru used Ambedkar as a Sikhandi, so that nobody can question, because if anyone questions constitution, and immediately he can be castigated, he can be criticized as the anti-Dalit. Now, this is the kind of constitution that we have got. And then there is another aspect which we line about Sardar Patel. Particularly the Hindutva groups or the pseudo-Hindutva groups lionize Sardar Patel as someone who was the greatest man. He was not at all. He was not. For the simple reason that Sardar Patel was the chairman of the Fundamental Rights Committee of the Constitution. Now, the Articles 25 to 30 are the entire the fundamental rights part 3 of the Constitution. Particularly the Articles 25 to 30 are his contribution. And his contribution is that Hindus have been subjugated as a second-class dhimmis, second-class citizens in this country by denying equal religious rights, equal educational rights, and equal cultural rights. And now we celebrate this man we lionize him, we call him Iron Man, we call him all sorts of epithets and eulogize him. But this is the kind of man whom we are worshipping a false god. So also the Nehru. So this is the simple background about the slave constitution, which the Congress themselves have castigated. It's not my words. This is about the...
Yeah. Please finish. Please finish.
Okay. Now, this is about it. Now, if you want me to continue into the RSS, why the RSS is celebrating...
No, I want to halt for a minute and raise a couple of questions.
Yes.
And firstly, you said Nehru may have thought that a Brahmin, B.N. Rao was a Brahmin, and therefore it shouldn't get attached to a Brahmanical whatever. But the fact is, everybody and their grandmother and their nieces and nephew knew that this was a carbon copy, cut and paste job of the British enacted Government of India Act. तो वो तो सुपर ब्राह्मण थे, वो उसको रिजेक्ट भी किया, तो यहाँ
but then
ब्राह्मणिकल
you
हेरिटेज
asked.
कहाँ आ गई? इसमें तो कोई ब्राह्मणिकल बात दूर दराज
No,
से
no,
भी
no, no, no. You are
नहीं, मैं
not
ये
understand.
समझ गई, एक मिनट, एक मिनट, क्योंकि जो आप कह रहे थे उससे एक गलत मैसेज जा सकता है कि ये ब्राह्मणिकल माइंड से बनी है, नहीं,
Yes.
ये स्लेव माइंड से, मतलब अंग्रेजों ने बनाई, जो सुपर क्लास थे, इंपीरियल रेस थे, उन्होंने हमको स्लेव बनाने के लिए, जैसा आपने कहा, स्लेव कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, और
No,
बीएन
मैं
राव
नहीं
लाइक
कहा
अ
हूँ, ये तो
गुड
कांग्रेस
स्लेव,
कहा है. No, no, मैं नहीं कहा हूँ.
कांग्रेस,
Congress
या
party
ट्रू,
themselves
ट्रू,
officially declared, officially
यस,
announced that Government of India Act is the slave constitution of India.
and BN Rao, like a beautiful slave, cut and copy pasted at somebody's behest. He must have been asked to do it by powers that
No,
be.
no, he was appointed as a constitutional advisor because he was a contemporary and I don't say friend but acquaintance of Nehru,
Uh,
and he has
True,
already
but
been in that.
Nehru or whoever assigned him this job
Hmm.
obviously wanted a hatchet job done on the Indian Constitution.
Exactly.
So there were people behind BN Rao's cut and paste job.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the point I was making. That there is really no Brahmanical thinking in it.
No, no, no. There is no Brahminical thinking. You are not. My point is
No,
this.
I know what you mean, but I'm
Okay.
saying it for the benefit of the viewers. You
Okay.
and I are on the same page.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any, but you know,
And
the way
then,
you said it, the choice of words sometimes can be misunderstood. इसलिए
yeah,
मैं clear. दूसरा,
yeah.
दूसरा, आप
No,
एक तो
I would
slave,
like to add one point here
sure,
that in the year 1953, in the Rajya Sabha proceedings are there. Then Ambedkar himself said that no, everyone says that I drafted the constitution, I made this constitution, I am the creator of the constitution. He says, I was a hack. Then I did what I was asked to do, and I'll be the first person to burn this constitution. These are the words, these are the available in the proceedings of Rajya Sabha, 1953, exact date I don't remember. This is available, this can be referred to. So Ambedkar himself declared that he was not the drafter of the constitution nor the creator of the constitution, but it served the purpose, political purpose, to project a Dalit as the creator of this constitution, so that all anti-Dalit things or anti-Hindu things, all anti-Indian things can be shielded from any attack. That's it.
absolutely. I think you really now cleared the fog. Now, another thing that I'd like to raise, and I'm sure Jaggi can expand on this. If you read the Constituent Assembly debates, there was stiff opposition. It's not as if it was accepted easily. Secondly, for example, Gandhi's own mentor, I mean, Nehru's own mentor, M.K. Gandhi, was also very unhappy with it. And particularly, Gandhians kept raising this, that there's no mention of, I mean, Gandhi का जो favorite bugbear था, वो था स्वराज and devolution of power to the villages. हिंद स्वराज में जो वो बात था,
Gram Swaraj.
Gram Swaraj, or which meant devolution of power. And there I think Gandhi was spot on. We have to give it to him that he got that part right, that Indian society was governed bottom up, never top down. और हमारा जो डाइवर्सिटी और एक वर्सेटैलिटी हमारे सिविलाइजेशन की इसीलिए रही कि ऊपर हुकूमत करने वाला कोई ऐसा सुल्तान नहीं जो सब के ऊपर वो बात थोप सके विद अ डिक्टेट. सुल्तानी फरमान यहाँ कभी नहीं चले. गांव में किसी कम्युनिटी में, गांव के अंदर भी हर कम्युनिटी अपने इंटरनल अफेयर्स खुद मैनेज कर रही है. गांव को मार्क्स ने भी कहा सेल्फ गवर्निंग विलेज रिपब्लिक्स का देश है भारत, और वो इकोनॉमिकली सेल्फ गवर्निंग, culturally, socially, linguistically, educationally, every village was that kind of self-governing, wealthy unit so that it could generate enough resources to run all its affairs, और जो कहते हैं 32 कलाओं या 36 कलाओं से एक गांव बसता है, यानी सब किस्म के उसमें फ्रॉम शिक्षक या जिसको आप कहेंगे
64 कलास
64, कोई 32 कहते हैं, कोई 64 कहते हैं, you're right. But all that, today our villages are bereft of even one कला. उनको कारपेंटर भी चाहिए होता है तो बाहर से लाना पड़ता है. Now, वो गांव की जो बात गांधी की परिकल्पना थी कि ग्राम स्वराज आएगा, उसको कोई मेंशन ही नहीं. और जब राजीव गांधी ने मणिशंकर के साथ मिलके ये ग्राम स्वराज का जो पंचायती राज एक्ट लाया, it's such a mockery of Gandhian obsession with gram swaraj. And that's something, no matter, even those who hate Gandhi, those who may not like him for 1,000 other things, एक इस बात पे गांधी बिल्कुल सही थे, और इस बात पे गांधी और उनके जो जेन्युइन फॉलोअर्स थे, उन्होंने इस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को बहुत क्रिटिसाइज किया कि ये तो टॉप डाउन है, बहुत इंपीरियस है, बहुत इंपीरियल है, power is concentrated in Delhi Darbar. Now, what do you say to that, Jaggi, and related matters?
Yeah, basically, Nehru was besotted with the Soviet-style top-down thinking, where there is a Politburo which will decide everything, and the rest of the people have to follow whatever is said. वो जो कहते थे, Politburo में decision होता था सबके हित में, और आपको सिर्फ जो कहते हैं वही करना है. This was this basic thinking. He was actually, even though he is talked of as a liberal, but he was actually more in tune with top-down dictatorship of the Soviet and Maoist type. In fact, whenever he went to China, he was so thrilled that he thought people were actually cheering him when it was the Communist Party that got them to wave Indian flags when he was passing by. So the whole point is he was too enamored of the top-down Soviet system. He had contempt for our farmers. He didn't even know what happened with the Soviets and the kulaks and how they destroyed their agriculture by having forced, collectivization, all those policies. He, till the end, almost he didn't seem to realize the kind of mistakes he had made. And unfortunately, Gandhi in this thing, he was so worried about the fact that some more radical elements like Netaji and others might take control of the party that he went with Nehru. I think that is why I think he, though I think Raoji says that Patel was this and that and all that, but I think one thing that Patel did not anticipate when he made those 25 to 30 was there was an assumption that it would apply to everybody. But in actual practice, what happened was Articles 25 to 30 do not say that they do not apply to Hindus. In practice, it became like that. So I think there was some, I think at the time of independence, they didn't realize the damage that could be done by colonized minds, a colonized judiciary, and a colonized IAS culture. That was the problem in the implementation. See, there's nothing wrong in saying that you will protect your minorities or whatever it is. But 25 to 30 makes sense only if you had a dharmic rashtra, a dharmic nation, a Hindu rashtra. Then you say, okay, I'll protect the minorities because the primary constitution is Hindu oriented. So I have to see that your minorities are protected. Here you had a secular thing and you said you will protect things. So the disjunct came from the fact that you conceived India as a secular, Western secular democracy, and then made sure that only the majority is excluded from the rights and said minorities have rights. That was the mistake in the 25 to 30, not in the way it was actually worded or drafted. Anyway, so that's a separate point. मैं क्या कहता हूँ कि गांधी जी in a moment of weakness, he allowed उनको लगता था कि कोई रैडिकल एलिमेंट्स पार्टी को कैप्चर नहीं किए जाए. उन्होंने तो पहले नेताजी को भगा दिया वहां से कांग्रेस पार्टी से. फिर वो जो आईएनए में गए और देश को लिबरेट करने की बात कर रहे थे. गांधी जी डिडंट लाइक दैट, सो ही वेंट फॉर द व्हाट ही थॉट वाज अ लेसर इविल एंड accepted Nehru. Nehru could butter him up and do that, even though Ambedkar was clear that a lot of what Gandhi was suggesting was humbug. So, but on the one thing you are right, Gandhi understood the core of this nation better than all these people, including Nehru and Ambedkar. Because Ambedkar also was a highly top-down thinker. Because in many ways he thought he also was besotted with Western democracy, Western ideal, all this equality, liberty, fraternity thing. I mean, French Revolution stuff, which nobody has been able to implement anywhere in the world. They shouted into our constitution. Whereas we all know that these things are ideals that if you try to achieve them, you will get only a dictatorship. So that is the whole problem. So anyway, मैं क्या कहता हूँ कि ये मिस्टेक हो चुका है, अभी हमें करेक्ट करना है, अभी बहुत कोशिश करने पड़ेंगे, क्योंकि ये अभी सबके मन में घुस गया है कि ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अंबेडकर ने बनाया, लेकिन अभी उसको अभी छू भी नहीं सकते, ऐसा हो गया. लेकिन
No,
वो
that
जो इसलिए वही
that,
जो
that was the objective, to make it, to
बीएनआर
firewall
को
it
जो है,
from,
अगर
to
एमएनआर
firewall it.
को दिए जाते तो बेटर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मिलता शायद.
Yeah, of course you would get the best constitution. I would ensure. I would
But
assure you that.
see, I think whether we are discussing Patel, Gandhi, or for that matter Ambedkar ji, मुझे लगता है कि हमारे देश में ये आदत बन गई है कि या तो पूरा ट्रैश या पूरा उसको लायनाइज.
Yeah, that's
Not
true.
to be able to see strong points as well as weak points of every person. हमारे यहाँ तो हमारे देवता भी 16 कला संपूर्ण नहीं होते, उनमें भी कोई ना कोई चांद में भी दाग है जैसे बोलते हैं. तो भगवान राम में, भगवान कृष्ण में, सब में कुछ ना कुछ. और हमारे जो इतिहासकार रहे हैं, महाभारत है, रामायण है, उनमें कभी नहीं ये किया कि हम आंख मोड़ ले या तो पूरी तरह नकारें जैसे लेफ्टिस्ट कर रहे हैं. राम को ऐसा नकारना, सीता को ऐसा स्लेव दिखाना, और कुछ दिखना ही नहीं उसमें. तो मुझे लग रहा है कि थोड़ा नुआंस थिंकिंग होना चाहिए. पटेल जी के बारे में भी देयर इज नो डाउट दैट ही फेल्ड मिजरेबली इन रेजिस्टिंग नेहरूज एक्सेसेस.
Yeah.
कोई जरूरत नहीं थी नेहरू के आगे झुकने की जब वो कू किया नेहरू ने प्रधानमंत्री की सीट के लिए. ही कुड हैव जस्ट स्टूड हिज ग्राउंड, रिफ्यूज्ड टू यील्ड. इसी किस्म से कश्मीर के मामले में कोई जरूरत नहीं थी नेहरू की बात सुनना और फौज को रुकवा देना. कोई जरूरत नहीं थी. ऐसे कई सारे काम हैं जहां पटेल ने अगर वाकई लौह पुरुष रहते तो, पर कई जगह लौह पुरुष दिखाया उन्होंने. हैदराबाद में फिर भी
No,
कुछ
no,
तो दिखाया.
sorry. No,
नहीं नहीं, I'm
Hyderabad.
saying
No,
you
no,
will come,
Hyderabad is
you
not
will come,
correct.
you will come on that. Similarly, नेताजी का आजकल इतना गुणगान हो रहा है कि लोग भूल रहे हैं नेताजी भी समाजवादी, लेफ्टिस्ट, सेक्युलर, सोशलिस्ट, वो सब चीजें थी, टॉप डाउन थे. तुम मुझे खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा. अरे ये कैसी आजादी होती है जो कोई ऐसे देता है जैसे उनके बैंक के लॉकर में रखी हुई है और ये एक्सचेंज होगा. ये स्लोगन भी अपने आप में प्रॉब्लमैटिक था. तो नेताजी की बहुत बातें हैं, अच्छी हैं, बहुत कुछ हम मानते हैं, सम्मान करते हैं, परंतु उनको भी ऐसा मत कीजिए कि चारों तरफ बस हेलो ही हेलो और ढंग से. तो इसी तरह से आप भी पटेल जी की समस्याएं जरूर कीजिए, परंतु ये नहीं कि हम उनको ट्रैशिंग के स्तर पे ले आए. मुझे लग रहा है कि इन सब में से अगर कोई होलसेल ट्रैशिंग का हकदार है तो वो नेहरू जी है. मुझे
No, I
सच में
don't.
कोई फीचर
No,
हाँ
Madhuji, I do not trash anyone. All that I say is that
जी,
episodic.
या
In a particular episode, this is the damage that a person has
ट्रू
caused.
ट्रू.
Yeah.
What I say is, no, there are two things on which I have serious reservations about Patel, whether it is Iron Man or not. Number one is about, I have already mentioned about the fundamental rights, whereby he has subjugated a whole civilization.
True.
Whole civilization. We are now second class or third class citizens in this country because of, thanks to Patel. The second one, even in Hyderabad, let me tell you, because I am from this area, I know he has deliberately delayed sending the army to capture to integrate Hyderabad. Only when communists who are operating from Vijayawada, that is in Madras presidency, they grouped and they started fighting and were about to take over Hyderabad. Then he sent the uh, army. Now, during this period of 1.5 year, more than 2 to 3 lakhs Hindus have been butchered by the Razakars. He had the reports. Why did he not do so? If he was so much in favor of Hindus, why should we celebrate? Why does he have to wait till September 1948 when we have got independence on August 1947? 13 months. So this is the thing I would like to say, that I do not consider him, he was just any other politician, nothing more. There is no need to lionize him at all or to construct a statue of that height. Absolutely nothing. I do not consider, because my people, including my own grandfather, was killed by Razakars. My mother became an orphan. My mama became an orphan at the age of when they were 5 and 3. I did because of Razakars. So why should, had he sent army in 1947, all these people lives could have been saved.
और
Because
रजाकार को फिर हमारे सर के ऊपर बिठा के रखना
yes,
होगा,
yes,
क्योंकि आप
no,
आज भी उन्हीं
not
की
only that,
संतान
he
है
was
रजाकार की.
he had no love for Hindus. He had only hatred for communists. That is the only that is the thing. Okay, no, I think we are digressing
Yeah.
into individual. Even
I think
Netaji
सरदार
also,
पटेल की लेगेसी किसी और
Yeah.
दिन करेंगे.
Even on Netaji, Gandhi was absolutely right. He would have been a greatest national disaster had Netaji continued as the president of the Congress, because he would have ensured that India became a dictatorship. He would have brought communism. He would have brought all kinds of things. At least to that extent, Nehru and Gandhi saved us. We would have become a dictatorship under him. Because you see, how can you trust a man who eulogizes mass murderer, a monstrous criminal like Hitler, and and Stalin, whom he admires, Lenin, whom he considers as one of the greatest figures? How can you trust these kind of fellows? And now we are having on the India Gate his statue. That is the tragedy of this civilization. What to do?
नागेश्वर जी, I know that you will be upsetting a lot of our viewers. मेरी आप हमारे सब viewers से request है, कृपया please don't blow your top. Listen carefully to the facts that are being presented. और जो facts दिए जा रहे हैं, चाहे जग्गी दे रहे हैं या नागेश्वर जी दे रहे हैं, चेक कर सकते हैं आप क्या वो सच बोल रहे हैं नहीं. और अगर सच बोल रहे हैं तो उस सच को फेस करने की, उससे डील करने की क्षमता आप में होनी चाहिए, यदि आप सही में इस देश का भला चाहते हैं. क्योंकि झूठ के आधार पे किसी को हीरो बनाना या आधी कच्ची पक्की जानकारी के आधार पे किसी को सर पे बिठा लेना, हमने नेहरू को कितने 70 साल अपने ऊपर राज करने दिया, वो सोच को, और आप देखिए नतीजा क्या है, अभी वो निकल रहा है. तो अभी हम फिर ऐसे लोगों को कम से कम ग्लोरीफाई न करें. My viewers, please don't get upset. Listen carefully. And here we are not into propaganda for or against. We are into trying to understand our past with all its nuances, all its complexities, all its flaws, all its strong points. तो प्लीज, और कुछ लोगों ने ये भी कहा है कि हम जैसे, ये भी मैं स्पष्टीकरण कर दूं, जो लोग बहुत अपसेट हैं कि मैंने आर्मी डिस्प्ले 26 जनवरी को सही नहीं मानती. मैं आर्मी डिस्प्ले चाहती हूं, पर जिस दिन हिंदू कैलेंडर में शस्त्र पूजा होती है, उस दिन हमारा शौर्य दिवस होना चाहिए, आर्म फोर्सेस डे वो होना चाहिए. उस दिन पूरे शान से हमें आर्मी को अपनी बात पहुंचाने का, अपनी क्षमता दिखाने का मौका मिलना चाहिए. We should all be on the streets celebrating the army, not just watching it on TV.
Yes.
तो ये नहीं कि हम नहीं चाहते हैं, मैं चाहती हूँ, पर प्लीज रिपब्लिक डे का मतलब क्या होता है जरा गूगल सर्च ही कर लीजिए, उससे ही पता चल जाएगा क्या होना चाहिए। और उसको आर्म्ड माइट डे से या हमारे आर्मी के डिस्प्ले, उसका शौर्य, उसका जो भी उस बल्कि मैं तो चाहती हूँ कि हम अपनी आर्मी के बारे में बहुत कुछ और भी जाने, केवल उसका परेड नहीं देखें। मिलिट्री हिस्ट्री कितनी यूनिवर्सिटीज में है ही नहीं,
These are
मिलिट्री
two
स्टडीज
different
है
things.
ही नहीं।
Republic and army or armed forces might showing off this one. They are two different things. You cannot club
यस,
it.
Yeah.
यस।
Yeah.
चलिए अब आते हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की इंफॉर्मिटीज पे। क्या इसमें इतनी, आपने एक तो कहा द लॉन्गेस्ट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इन द वर्ल्ड, सो दैट सब कुछ घुसा दिया और बार बार उसके साथ छेड़खानी हो रही है। तो बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर जग्गी कहते किसको है, इसका क्या है बेसिक, हमें तो आज तक नहीं समझ आया। ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजेस कैसे फ्लंग करते हैं, इवन वाइल दे पास सो मेनी अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल ऑर्डर्स लेफ्ट राइट एंड सेंटर, सो मेनी अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल ऑर्डर्स, ये कहां से इनको दिखता है ये हवाई गोला।
बेसिकली सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने एक छोटा सा प्रोविजन है आर्टिकल 142, जहां पे लिखा गया है कि अगर लॉ में कुछ कमी है तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट कुछ ऑर्डर्स पास करते हैं, दे विल हैव द सेम पावर एफ लेजिस्लेटेड लॉज। ओके, किंतु ये इस आर्टिकल 142 को इतना अब्यूज किया गया है कि हर जगह पे जा रहा है कि एसयूवी दिल्ली में नहीं आ सकते हैं, टैक्स लगाओ। टैक्स लगाना क्या सुप्रीम कोर्ट का काम है? अभी कोविड में किसको कितना पैसा देना है वो क्या सुप्रीम कोर्ट का काम है? वैक्सीन पॉलिसी कैसा है वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट का काम है। कि आई मीन हर बात पे सुप्रीम कोर्ट टांग लड़ा रही है और वो गलत है। सो एक अगर बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर ये है, बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर में एक पार्लियामेंट है, लेजिस्लेचर है, एग्जीक्यूटिव है और जुडिशियरी है। अगर जुडिशियरी जुडिशियल रूल करानी चाहती है, देन वी आर इनटू क्रिटार्की, नॉट डेमोक्रेसी। रूल बाय जजेस इज अ सेपरेट काइंड ऑफ government. The basic structure of the constitution, if at all is there, is that each arm of the state has its own space. It cannot transgress into another. Executive cannot get into judicial roles, judiciary cannot get into parliament's roles, parliaments cannot get into some other person's roles, whatever it is. But so the judiciary has run a coach and four over the basic structure by saying that ultimately we will decide how the country should be run. And this was the huge mistake. The problem is because there have been a lot of failures at the political level and the legislative level, people think that we must use the judiciary to get things done. And this, the left has managed to use endlessly to bring in laws that are none of the business. I mean, whether there should be a bar on the highway or not, is it the Supreme Court's job to decide? I mean, so many others, if people are so worried about a bar that is there on a highway and you want to have prohibition, they can agitate, get politicians to change the law and do all that. Why should the Supreme Court say bars highway pe nahi honge? I mean, this is the level of transgression the Supreme Court has done. It has actually destroyed the basic division of power in the Constitution. They have destroyed the basic structure of the Constitution.
नॉट ओनली दैट, पार्लियामेंट कोई एक तो पार्लियामेंट ड्यू डिलिजेंस से लॉ पास करती नहीं हमारी। बिफोर द लॉ इज पास्ड इट्स यूज्ड बाय डेट इज ओवर एंड यू स्टार्ट हियरिंग स्टोरीज अबाउट इट्स मिसयूज एंड अब्यूज। एनीवे, अभी गलती से कोई ठीक कर भी दे तो तुरंत आ जाता है उसका चैलेंज सुप्रीम कोर्ट में।
करेक्ट।
तो दहशत में पार्लियामेंट जी रही है। वैसे ही दहशत बहुत है पॉलिटिशियंस को अपने पार्टी बॉसेस की। दे आर रियली लाइक बॉन्डेड स्लेव्स, आर एमपीज एंड एमएलएज, दे डोंट काउंट फॉर मच। एज इट इज देयर इज पुअर process, I mean due process for discussing laws etc. is not really followed in India. Party dictates decide, तुमने सपोर्ट करना है, तुमको अपोज करना है। अच्छे से अच्छा फार्म लॉज जो आए थे, आप देखिए, for once actually the government passed good legislation brought about much needed changes in farm policy and farm farm sector laws. और सुप्रीम कोर्ट भी आ गई हुक्म देने मोदी सरकार को कि इसको रिव्यू करो, जाके उनसे बात करो, उनको सेटिस्फाई करो. अनोखी हरकतें इसी किस्म से सीएए को लेकर इतना माइल्ड सा लॉ है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट पहुंच जाती है कहने कि आप जाइए शाहीन बाग में, भेजिए अपने नुमाइंदे, उनको सेटिस्फाई करिए. अर्बन नक्सल्स के लिए उनको बहुत एकदम सुप्रीम कोर्ट का दिल पसीज जाता है, पर पालघर साधुओं के लिए नहीं होता. ह्यूमन राइट्स की भी अगर हम पैरवी की बात करें तो सवाल ये है कि बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर का जो फार्स है, आई थिंक जगी यू डन अ वेरी गुड जॉब ऑफ explaining why it has become farcical in those few words. Would you like to add to it, Nageshwar ji?
I would like to take little longer to explain
Please
what
do it.
exactly. I will let me narrate a small anecdote which should explain the things about the basic structure of the Constitution and the theories that have been woven around the Constitution. There was a great man of letters by name Narayanacharyulu, Puttaparthi Narayanacharyulu. He was born in 1914 and I think died sometime in early 90s. He was a great Telugu genius and was a polyglot in around 14 languages. He was from place near Tirupati. So he had no formal academic qualification, though he was well versed in Vedas and all our traditional knowledge systems. And at the age of 12, he published a book called Penugonda Lakshmi, P. Lakshmi. And interestingly, this book, for its imagination, expression, and all sorts of things, it was prescribed as a textbook in Madras, by Madras University, because at that time, the Tirupati area was in Madras. For the Vidwan examination, Vidwan was one of the degrees. So one of his friends, this Narayana Charli's friends, he goaded him, since you don't have a formal education, academic qualification, why don't you take that Vidwan examination? And interestingly, this book, his own book, was one of the prescribed syllabus. And he failed in that when he took the exam. Then, so then he kept quiet to himself. When his friend asked what happened to your results, then he reluctantly said, "No, I failed." But what nonsense! This is your own book. He said, "No, I didn't know that there are so many stories and theories around my book when I wrote this book." Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the same thing happened is a story with our constitution. Suppose today you call all the members of, including B. Narsingh Rao, or even the British, or even the Constituent Assembly members, Ambedkar and everybody, and say that what our judiciary has invented, the basic structure of the constitution, did you think it of? Then all of them will fumble. So this is a total humbug, the doctrine of the basic structure. And but unfortunately, what happened? They have firewalled the constitution and made it a kind of a permanent document. But there is a history to this doctrine of basic structure. That is, in the year 1954, a case went to about a Hindu Mutt case, Sharur Mutt case, went to the Supreme Court, and there the judges of Supreme Court at that time, they have declared what is called a doctrine of essential religious practices.
Huh.
Whether a particular thing is an essential practice of a religion or not. Now, this has become a guiding principle as far as the interpretation, whether a particular festival, ritual, custom, tradition, or such other thing is part of the Hindu religion. And it has become a kind of an Agni Pariksha. That means all our festivals, all our traditions have to go through this Agni Pariksha of doctrine of essential religious practices. And if it survives that, it remains. If it is not, then it is gone. Sabarimala is a recent example how it said, no, what is the practice that is being followed in Sabarimala temple is not an essential religious practice. and that is what the Supreme Court has said. Now, the point I would like to say is that this doctrine of essential religious practice, it has become the precursor to the doctrine of basic structure of the Constitution. How? It's like this. Now, as we know, there are established religions like the Abrahamic religions like Islam and Christianity, which have a founder and which have a particular book. The book gives out all the details, do's and don'ts, what are the things to be done, what is essential practice, what is not essential practice, and all sorts of things. Whereas in case of the evolved religions or evolved dharma like Hinduism, they are basically synthesis of various philosophical, religious, and cultural practices which have evolved over a millennia, and we have no one founder. And you can do anything, and still you are a Hindu. You don't do anything, still you are a Hindu, which is not so with Abrahamism. Now, when the our court have said that only when this particular essential practice it meets that requirement, then you are a Hindu or it's a Hindu practice. That led to what is called Abrahamization of Hindu faith, or Abrahamic interpretation of Hindu faith. Likewise, the Supreme Court has said these are the certain basic things in the Constitution which cannot be amended or which have to be followed. And but what are those, as Jaggi has mentioned earlier? They have not listed out what. They simply said there is something called a basic structure of the Constitution which nobody can violate. But then they have not clearly mentioned what is the basic structure and what is not a basic structure. Now, this is the fundamental problem. And what is the consequence of this basic structure of the Constitution? The problem is that it has fossilized our Constitution. It has calcified, it has destroyed, it has frozen in the stone, that these are the things which cannot be changed, so therefore they would remain. In other words, they have Abrahamized our Constitution. The judges have Abrahamized the Constitution, and by following the Abrahamic interpretation of the Constitution and our governance. Now the question is, the Constituent Assembly was very much aware that no, they did not want to give anything that is so cast in stone that the future generations would become slaves of their thought process. Now we all know that the Constituent Assembly, or whatever the people of at that time, they had certain ideas. They thought that these ideas were good, but then they were intelligent and they were considerate enough to leave that these ideas may not be valid for all times to come, all situations to come. So therefore, they provided for a flexible constitution, and they also provided for amending the constitution. They gave the power to parliament, and also in certain cases to the assemblies, state assemblies together with parliament. That is, at least 50% of the assemblies have to concur to amend the constitution. Now, the judiciary, because of certain political vacuum or the political delegitimization that has taken place over a period of time for various reasons, they have entered into the legislative and constituent vacuum. And then they declared, and rather decreed, that no, look, these are the basic structure. So therefore, you cannot touch. And one of the basic structure is that judges will appoint the judges. And
But that's
no,
new.
and nowhere
That's
in the
new.
world,
New.
beg pardon?
Judges appointing judges
No,
is not part of the Constitution.
it is not part of the constitution, but they said judicial
Hmm.
independence means executive should not have any say in the appointment of judges. And therefore, since judicial independence is part of the basic structure of the constitution, so judges alone will appoint the judges. That is the interpretation.
Yeah.
That is the interpretation. So these are the kind of things which have brought into. So therefore, the profound question that we need to ask is whether the judiciary wants Indians, particularly Hindus, to be people of books. That means we believe in many books, or people of the book, that is the constitution. Now they want to Abrahamize us, forcing us to believe only in the constitution which cannot be changed, because they have said that this is its basic structure, and this is the danger to our civilization, which never believed in one book or one thought or one idea or one philosophy forever. So it always said, it is your idea. Okay, fine. As long as I agree, I will accept. But you can't force it on me.
Yeah.
Even the current thought that no, everyone should take vaccine, and people are being
Yeah.
forced. People are being forced. The police are being used and forcefully administering vaccine. Who whose valid whose efficiency and whose side effects are not clearly known to us. This is also, somebody can say that giving vaccine is forceful giving of vaccine is basic structure of the constitution.
This
You
is
cannot say that.
totalitarianism of the worst kind. We've taken
Yes,
it from China. I
yes,
cannot believe it that we're not allowed
and I
to
tell
take it.
you,
And I'd
Indira
say it
Gandhi.
openly, I have not taken vaccine. I will not take vaccine. You put a gun to my head, Narendra Modi ji, I will not take your vaccine.
No,
You
you see,
really are running amok. And
Indira
this is,
Gandhi.
I mean, honestly, they might even put it in fundamental duties. There are no other fundamental duties in the constitution. But, this kind of, we will pump whatever vaccine we want into you might become, it's almost like a fundamental duty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, it's causing
In
havoc.
fact, Madhuji, Indira Gandhi would be actually very envious of present government of India, saying that why she could not have so much of draconian powers. Why did she have to impose emergency to do all these things? She could have done without all these things. So she looked more like she looks more like a saint now with the hindsight than what we are undergoing now. That is the thing. So this is
Thank
the
you.
basic.
Thank you.
This is the fundamental problem of the basic structure of the constitution. To put it in one word, they want to Abrahamize India and Indian civilization, Indian culture, Indian religions, Indic religions, and everything that is India, using the doctrine of basic structure and doctrine of the essential religious practices. And this is the greatest danger to our ancient civilization and its survival.
I so very, I mean, I agree with every single word you've spoken, Nageshwarji. But
Thank
another
you.
thing I'd like to add to what you said, ये जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट की जजमेंट्स होती हैं और जितनी वो पॉम्पस और इरेशनल होती हैं, उनको जस्टिफाई करने के लिए ब्रिटिश प्रेसिडेंट्स करेंगे साइट, फ्लान ढिमका ग्लोबल प्रेसिडेंट्स which have no relationship to the
Absolutely.
issue at hand very often, but they want to appear very pedantic and very connected to the global jurisprudence system and avant-garde. तो बेवजह ठोक देते हैं प्रेसिडेंट्स की कहानी जिसका कोई रिश्ता नहीं है जो समस्या उनके सामने लाई गई है जुडिशियल प्रोसीडिंग्स के लिए, वहां पे कोई जरूरत नहीं होती फिर भी करते हैं. तो ये वाकई ही, और जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस को इस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने प्रोटेक्ट करके रखा है, वो भी अपने आप में बहुत बड़ी समस्या है कि हमारे रिकॉलोनाइजेशन का एक बहुत बड़ा हथियार बन गई है. अब जो आपके, अगर आपने इस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को बदलना हो, एक तो पहले हम ये तय करें कि ये कहां से आया कि ये सेक्रेड ग्रंथ है. ये कब से फैशन चला? कांग्रेस ने कभी ऐसा नहीं फैशन चलाया, लेफ्ट ने कभी ऐसा नहीं चलाया. ये भाजपा को कैसे सेक्रेड ग्रंथ लगने लग, धर्म ग्रंथ बोलते हैं, जो कि हमारे प्रथा में आता ही नहीं है. जरा मुझे इस पे भी आप थोड़ा रोशनी डालिए।
नहीं, आई
Is it
थिंक
too? Okay.
सॉरी, आप कहिए।
No, no,
प्लीज
no. You please.
जगी गो
जग्गी जी
है।
आप कहिए. Then I just
नहीं,
spoke.
इसमें टू पार्ट्स हैं। एक, आपको, आई मीन, आई वुड गिव सम बेनिफिट ऑफ डाउट टू द गवर्नमेंट कि आप जो दिखाना चाहते हैं और एज अ प्राइम मिनिस्टर कुछ सेंटली थिंग्स बोलना पड़ता है आपको, आप कर सकते हैं, उसमें कुछ गलत नहीं है। जैसे कि अगर आपको कहना है कि गांधी जी इज द बेस्ट लीडर वी एवर हैड, देन यू आर, इट्स ओके। जब आप करते अलग हैं लेकिन बोलते अलग हैं तो ठीक है, थोड़ा हिपोक्रेसी राजधर्म में होना चाहिए, क्योंकि नहीं तो if you say exactly what you feel like, then it is more difficult to govern a diverse nation. But the problem is these people are doing what they are saying. That is my problem. I am okay if you say सबका साथ सबका विकास, लेकिन उसके सबका साथ में अगर आपका मेजोरिटी कम्युनिटी को एक्सक्लूड कर दे तो उसमें फायदा क्या है? सो द पॉइंट इज, सबका साथ सबका विकास नहीं हो रहा है, सबका बहुत बकवास हो रहा है। लेकिन बेसिकली आई वांट टू सेपरेट द पॉइंट दैट समटाइम्स गवर्नमेंट्स हैव टू से पॉलिटिकली करेक्ट थिंग्स। वो ठीक है, आई विल नॉट कंप्लेन अबाउट पॉलिटिकली करेक्ट थिंग्स as long as you are doing in effect the right things. So there I think the government is somewhere falling short, because I think I have no objection to say सबका साथ सबका विकास सबका विश्वास। उसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या है?
नहीं कर दो ना सबका, हमारा भी कर लो।
बट
मैं तो
सबका मतलब
नहीं,
सब होना
देखिए,
चाहिए। नो,
this
सबका
is
मतलब सब होना
actually
चाहिए।
not aimed at us.
हाँ,
It is
करेक्ट,
meant to trample on us. I'm
दैट्स
willing to
राइट।
go for the
वही
slogan.
प्रॉब्लम है ना। वही एसेंशियली क्या हो गया है कि एक तो कॉलोनाइज माइंडसेट अभी सेट हो चुका है, दूसरा एक धिमिट्यूड जो कांग्रेस गवर्नमेंट्स में थोड़ा कम था, क्योंकि उनको वैसे भी फ्री में माइनॉरिटी वोट मिल रहा था, इनको मिल नहीं रहा है, इसलिए ये और भी धीमी हो गया है। इसलिए कि अभी जो भी करना चाहते हैं वो अभी माइनॉरिटीज को पहले उधर जाके माला चढ़ाते हैं, फिर बात करते हैं। इसलिए आई थिंक द डिमिट्यूड ऑफ द इंडियन गवर्नमेंट अंडर एवरी सब्सिक्वेंट गवर्नमेंट इज गेटिंग वर्स, and that is the problem both with the constitution and our Hindu mindset. I think our problem has been I mean, sometime back we criticized all our leaders, including those we consider heroes. The truth is, I think the one thing that unites all of them, from Nehru to Bose to Gandhi to Patel, all of them exhibited a slightly dhimified mindset, which over centuries of Islamic rule and subsequently British colonialism ensured that we no longer can think for ourselves and speak. The one guy who you should exclude from that dimitude was probably Ambedkar, who could speak his mind on everything. He could criticize
No,
Hindus, he
no,
could
no, no,
criticize
no.
Muslims.
I'm
Huh?
sorry.
No, it
Very
seems so. Seems so.
emotional.
Today we can actually quote Ambedkar and say what we want to say, largely because he could say what he wanted, but none of the others could say anything that they wanted.
Okay, fine. Point well taken. Now, the other point I'd like to connect you to is this. ये जो धर्म ग्रंथ की उपाधि देने का प्रयास है, जो हमारे ट्रेडिशन के खिलाफ है, और जिनके असली होते हैं होली बुक्स, वो मानने को तो तैयार नहीं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को। मुस्लिम्स ने और क्रिश्चियंस ने कभी नहीं माना कि ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन उनके लिए सीक्रेट है, और खुल के कई बार चैलेंज किया है कि अगर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है बिटवीन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन और हमारे मजहब में, तो हमारा मजहब ऊपर है, भाड़ में जाए तुम्हारे कानून, भाड़ में जाए तुम्हारी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। हर बार बार खुले मंच से चिल्ला चिल्ला के कहते ही नहीं, करते भी हैं, और पूरा देश जलाने के लिए तैयार हो जाते हैं। अगर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की जो वैल्यूज हम सब पे लागू हैं, उन पे लागू करो, तो वो जला देंगे, वो तैयार है। एक तरफ तो वो है, बट जब से ये सेक्रेडनेस का कॉन्सेप्ट आने लगा है, जो मैं देख रही हूँ, मुझे चिंता इस बात की है कि एक तरफ हिंदुओं के बीच में जो नई जागृति है कि हम अब सेकंड क्लास थर्ड क्लास दिल्ली सिटीजन बन के नहीं जीने को तैयार, उसके लिए हमें संविधान बदलना पड़ेगा। ये संविधान के चलते ये हमारे गले का पत्थर, जिसने माइनॉरिटीज को हर चीज पे वीटो पावर दे दी है, स्पेशल पावर्स दे दिए हैं, और वी सर्वाइव एट देयर प्लेजर। वो जो नहीं चाहते वो हम किताब पढ़ नहीं सकते, जो वो स्पीच नहीं सुनना चाहते वो हम शब्द बोल नहीं सकते। बाहर में जाए फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन, उनके लिए है, हमारे लिए नहीं है। ये बार बार सिद्ध हो रहा है। और आज उसका जो मैंने उदाहरण सुना है अपने एक करीबी मित्र से, जिन पे गैग ऑर्डर लगाया गया क्योंकि वो खुल के धर्म के बारे में या क्रिटिक कर रहे हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को, उनको गैग ऑर्डर आज मिला है। इट्स अ हॉरिबल सिचुएशन। वो गैग ऑर्डर ओवैसी पे नहीं लग सकता। द पॉइंट दैट आई एम ट्राइंग टू मेक इज दिस, क्योंकि ये धर्म ग्रंथ हम पे अब वो हम पे लादना चाहते हैं। वो हवाला देते हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर जो है इसको नहीं छोड़ सकते। भारतीय सरकार कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के साथ खिलवाड़ कर रही है, मोदी ये फासिस्ट है। अभी आशीष, अगर आपके पास वो जो मैंने फोटो भेजी थी हमारे फॉर्मर वाइस प्रेसिडेंट हामिद अंसारी जी, मुझे अभी याद आया, अभी एक कहीं अमेरिका में यूएस कांग्रेस में शायद अपना टेस्टिमनी देने जा रहे हैं। इफ यू हैव इट प्लीज ब्रिंग इट, आई सेंट इट टू यू इन द मॉर्निंग। आशीष, प्लीज ब्रिंग इट ऑन द स्क्रीन। ही इज गोइंग देयर टू से प्लीज हेल्प अस प्रोटेक्ट आवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। ये भारत की जो सरकार है, मोदी सरकार, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के साथ बहुत अन्याय कर रही है, उसको पैरों तले रोल रही है। तो आज हामिद अंसारी जी जो खुद के लिए कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के जो कॉन्स्ट्रेंट्स हैं, कभी अपने ना मजहब के लिए मानने को तैयार है, ना कम्युनिटी के लिए, ना स्वयं के लिए, वो इंसान जाके हम पे थोप रहा है कि ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को छेड़ नहीं सकते, क्योंकि अब हिंदुओं में आवाज उठ रही है। जब तक ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को ट्रैश करें तब तक इनको हक है, क्योंकि ये तो उनका तो मजहबी है, अल्लाह ने दिया है। तो मोदी जी या बीजेपी या आरएसएस, एंड नाउ दिस इज वेयर वी ब्रिंग देम इन, और उसके साथ रैशनलिस्ट। लेट मी शो यू दिस पिक्चर। ये देखिए, Odisha couple tie knots with oath on the constitution.
It is the deracination of the highest order. I tweeted, nothing can be more stupid than this. And this is the level to which our education system is making
deracination. Deracination.
Absolutely, the deracination. Education system makes us deracinate. And this probably the RSS or BJP must be behind this.
नहीं, ये rationalist हैं। वो जो सारे टाइप rationalist हैं ये फैमिली।
ओके।
और देखिए, मैं ये कहना चाह रही हूँ, आज के दिन बेवकूफी करने वालों को किसी की शय भी नहीं चाहिए, बिकॉज इट्स ऑल इन द एयर। Now imagine swearing by a document which doesn't even mention marriage.
No, in fact, I said, suppose every time there is an amendment to Constitution, will they retake the oath? Will they remarry? What a stupid!
That's stupid.
Yeah.
और उस पूरी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में ना फैमिली शब्द है ना मैरिज शब्द है, तो किस चीज का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का आप किसका हवाला दे रहे हैं? I mean, it was so ridiculous, laughable, but that whole city is gaga, or at least the news report says so, कि बहुत लोग खुश हैं कि ये rationalist हैं। अच्छा, rationalism।
No, आप तो now Jaggi ji is the journalist, he knows it. Suppose when ये जो कुत्ता मनुष्य को काटते हैं वो न्यूज नहीं है, मानो जब कुत्ता को काटता है वो न्यूज होता है। सो अभी जैसा ही है, now this kind of weird things when you do it, the journalists find it very interesting and to get so therefore they publish it. So there's nothing more,
लेकिन पूछते नहीं है कि ये क्या है, इसमें क्या है।
वही है
कॉमन सेंस यूज नहीं करते हैं बस।
एब्सोल्युटली
नहीं, और अगर आपको रिचुअल से परहेज है तो शकुंतला ने जैसे दुष्यंत से शादी की थी, गंधर्व विवाह।
there are 8 types of
बात खत्म।
8 types of marriages are there.
Why do you have to do this a farce? It's an insult even to common sense, leave alone the constitution. Anyway, so ये जो धर्म ग्रंथ की जो अब हमारे ऊपर गले का पत्थर बनाने की कोशिश की जा रही है, वो भी किससे, जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के अभी तक चिथड़े उधेड़ते आए। वो पर्सनल लॉ में छेड़छाड़ नहीं करने देंगे। वो अपनी किसी बात में, आपने कहा था डॉक्ट्रिन ऑफ इसेंशियल रिलीजियस प्रैक्टिस मुस्लिम्स पे
essential religious practices.
I know, Ras, I know that doctrine. I wish they would apply doctrine of common sense once in a while,
Yes, yes.
because you wouldn't dare apply it on Muslims or Christians or those who
No,
are.
it's only Hindus who have these kind of stupid ideas and all that.
Yeah. Not only that, it's a very dangerous idea. I think when it first
Yeah,
came
yeah.
in that Shirur Mutt case, it looked sensible. But how do you separate essential practice in a temple? Can, for example,
No,
if you can say, okay, the making of prasad is a commercial activity, therefore it is not essential practice, bol sakte hain.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, if you have to sweep the temple and you say, okay, now you have to allow everybody in because sweeping is not a essential
Yeah.
practice of the religion. वो तो घर में भी
नहीं,
करते हैं, सुप्रीम कोर्ट में भी स्वीपिंग करते हैं.
हमारे सभी शास्त्र कहते हैं कि जो हमारे कस्टमरी प्रैक्टिस है इवॉल्व करते हैं.
Correct.
None of them are written in stone.
Yeah,
जो
right.
महाभारत में भीष्म ने युधिष्ठिर और पांडवों को धर्म की शिक्षा, राजधर्म की शिक्षा दी, उसमें भी बहुत स्पष्ट है कि राजा का धर्म ये नहीं है कि डंडा चला के कहो कोवैक्सीन लगानी है नहीं तो पीट डालूंगा कोई नौकरी चली जाएगी. राजा का धर्म है कि क्या प्रजा चाहती है उसको समझ के उसके अनुसार उनकी मान्यताओं की इज्जत रख के राजा
Yes.
को. और तभी इतने डाइवर्सिटी रही है. We've never had a pope who said
Yeah,
thou
yeah.
shalt not 10 commandments. We've never had a
Absolutely.
pegambar who said
Yes.
thou shalt hate so and so, thou shalt murder so and so. We've never had that. तो ये कहाँ से ये बने जा रहे हैं नए पोप हमारे लिए, नए पैगंबर जिनकी बात में जैसे डॉक्ट्रिन ऑफ कॉमन सेंस भी जिस पे अप्लाई नहीं हो सकता.
Correct.
So tell me, what would you change? Where will you start? Essential changes.
Yeah.
There's this doctrine of essential religious practices. Tell me, what is your doctrine of essential changes which must be triggered right away?
Is it to me?
Yeah.
Okay. No. I would like to go a little bit to how this book has come into being as a holy book. As we all know, a constitution of any country is essentially a manual for political governance of the country. We have to be very, very clear. It is simply a manual to govern. Like a company may be having its own rules, a department may be having its own rules. Likewise, India has a book, or England has a book, or British US has a book which is called a Constitution, and those are that is a manual as to how to govern the country. It does not have anything more or no more significant than as a political manual. Now, how and Congress, even till 2004 or like 2000 or like that, till such time, even Congress never thought that it is a holy book. Even Nehru never thought it. Of course, Gandhi was not there when book came. Nobody ever thought that it has something. There is some kind of a sacredness attached to it. Now, come RSS into the dominant political scene. RSS, we have to know. RSS is an organization which is patterned after Abrahamism. Though it has a symbolic Hindu things, but there is nothing Hindu in the RSS. The nation state is converted into what is called a Bharat Mata, and you celebrate and you commemorate, or you consider a geography as sacred. Nothing wrong in that, but then that is not the Hinduism. That alone is not Hinduism. Then they don't read Hindu scriptures. They don't practice anything Hindu. Their dress is not Hindu. Their march past is not Hindu. Their actions are not Hindu. But yet they say that they represent Hindu interests. So in a political vacuum, or in a vacuum where Hindus are not represented by any group, yes, they filled that vacuum. But the problem is they themselves do not know what is Hindu. And secondly, the left liberals have been constantly attacking the RSS at least since Guruji's days. Now, these people didn't know how to respond. Had they been rooted in Hinduism, Hindu Shastras, probably they could have had better responses to the accusations and then intellectual assault on the RSS. Since they were uprooted, deracinated, they have nothing else. So they were getting washed away in the flood. Now suddenly they found some weed or some kind of a thing, small asara or whatever support in the form of this constitution. So they discovered that since this constitution is drafted by or popularly known as drafted by a Dalit, so let us take the support of this constitution so that nobody can attack us. What was thought by the Nehru actually has been used by the RSS. So since then, particularly 2000, after the Ram Janmabhoomi and all that, when the attacks have become too much, so they resorted to this constitutionalism and then started quoting constitution never says this, constitution never says this, secularism is not secularism is good but pseudo secularism is bad, all these kind of things, that Congress is a pseudo secular and we are the pure secularists, all these kind of thing thought. And when Modi ji became the chief minister, and because of the Godra and all the subsequent incidents, he also came under tremendous attack. You have to see the psychology of the person. When he was attacked from all sides, he has to find something credible, or at least it can be shown as credible. So then he started worshipping, or at least public show of the celebrating the Constitution as a holy book, Constitution as a sacred book. In the year 2010, I think, or 2009 or 10, there was a Gajarohan of Constitution, the replica of the Constitution, a giant replica of Constitution was taken in Gujarat, I think Surendranagar or Rajkot, and on a elephant, it was paraded throughout the city and brought before the statue of Ambedkar, and then there it was worshipped. It started from there, and from then onwards, it has become a kind of a norm within the Sangh Parivar to project Constitution as some holy book or a sacred book, and then Parliament or democracy as something, or Parliament as a temple. That is why Modi ji bows before the steps. Like, when you go to the temple, you first touch because that temple is the house of God. So we have no right to go there. So therefore, first we have to take God's permission or deity's permission. That is why we touch the footsteps, and then we enter the temple. That is taking permission. But here Modi ji has converted that into some kind of a fetish. And then he did that, and you have already shown the photograph of how he was bowing before the book of the Constitution. Before I say, as per Hinduism, our Shastras, a text or something written on a paper or on any sheet is not a book. Even word is not a book. The meaning of the word is the book. You have to understand this. Suppose even in that is why we give more stress to the that is oral things. Shruti. Because what is the meaning of that? That is the book. That is the Granth. Guru Granth means not what is the book that is known nowadays, the sacrileges of Orena. This is all not. This is all Abrahamic thing, because you have a fetish for this particular physical things. But as per Hinduism, the meaning contained in the book is the book. It is not. So, but whereas because of this Abrahamic thought in the RSS and then deracination, so they converted this into a kind of a holy book. Now, what is happening? The idea of the holy book is foreign to India. and it is definitely foreign to Hindu culture. What is holy book? As per the Abrahamic thought, it is the word of God, it is the will of the God. And so therefore the word of God cannot be wrong, hence you cannot challenge it, and nobody can amend it, nobody can change it. And anyone who challenges or who changes the word of God as contained in that holy book, then he is challenging the God, and therefore has to be punished. Now, today, if the constitution, when the parliament amends it, whether the parliament should be punished because no, you have declared the constitution as a holy book, and no, parliament has changed it. And parliament has changed it how many times? 105 times the constitution has been amended so far, of which 7 times by the present government since 2014. And so therefore no, this Abrahamization, as I have mentioned, no, basic structure and how the judiciary has imposed Abrahamization on the constitution, this Abrahamized thought process has converted this manual of political governance into a kind of holy book. In fact, as you rightly mentioned, constitution doesn't talk even about the family or marriage. It does not even, in fact, constitution does not even tell us what is the correct way to live. All that it says that, okay, you have these rights, which you can get it enforced through the courts. And when the state, when the government infringes them. And so later we have added the duties of citizens and etc. All that we can say is that the constitution is a product of reason. It is a framework to conduct our political affairs using reason and our intellect. It is nothing more than that. In fact, so therefore, no, it is absolutely wrong to declare constitution as a holy book. And there is another problem. The moment you declare a book or anything as holy, what would happen? Symbolism gets substituted for the substantial. You don't have to do anything. All that you have to do is do namaskar.
Yeah, correct.
Which is what Khalistanis are doing
Yes.
to the Guru Granth Sahib.
Yes,
I mean,
you
what
don't.
Khalistanis have done with the
Yes,
Granth Sahib is precisely that.
exactly.
To
So now
violate every
even the
basic
governments in India,
message.
governments in India, what they are doing symbolically, they say no, constitution is a holy book. हम नमस्कार करते हैं every day morning. Even Yogi ji, because he has to fall in line, Yogi ji has said every person must have a book of constitution as a religion, as a like religious book in his house. This is what Yogi ji said on 26th of November 2021.
अब
So
योगी जी के तो मुंह में लाले जा रहे हैं
no, वो ये no. I am giving benefit of doubt to him because he has to toe the line of his party. Otherwise, no, he would never do that. So since the holy book demands to be worshipped, and no, we only worship the constitution instead of enforcing good things in the constitution. Whereas the constitution merely requires us to govern the country properly
which
by
we are not doing.
following certain principles enunciated and enshrined in it. And instead of following that spirit, we are worshipping it and misgoverning it. So this is the problem when you convert anything from a temporal or an ordinary thing into a holy thing. Because the moment somebody is holy, you don't have to do anything. All that is no, just do some kind of a psychophancy of that book or that particular person and do whatever you want it. This is the danger of making constitution as a holy book. Thank you.
You know, Nageshwar ji, while you were narrating this story of how it emanated from Narendra Modi as Gujarat Chief Minister,
Yeah.
who then paraded, you're right, he paraded a giant...
it is actually Narendra Modi, it is actually Modi ji's creation. Constitution being transformed into a holy book is a Modi ji's creation.
I know, but
it was not the creation of the...
Yeah.
Beg pardon?
No, I was reminded of a story.
Okay.
Firstly, the Constitution as a Dharma Granth, holy book. Then the Parliament as a temple of democracy, जहां आप नतमस्तक होके जाते हैं. परंतु जिस व्यक्ति ने ये होली बुक का शुरू किया गुजरात में प्रपंच, वो व्यक्ति के बारे में सबसे बड़ी शिकायत थी गुजरात में ऑपोजिशन पार्टी और शायद उनकी अपनी पार्टी को भी, कि कभी असेंबली में आते ही नहीं थे। रेयरली आई आस्क्ड हिम
No,
कि
no,
लोग
that may
इतने
be.
खफा हैं, आप क्यों नहीं जाते हैं? ही टोल्ड मी वेरी प्लेनली, वहां क्या बकवासबाजी होती है, मैं क्या अपना टाइम वेस्ट करने जाऊं? तो ऑपोजिशन के पास कुछ बात होती नहीं करने की, और तो इसलिए आई डोंट इवन वांट टू वेस्ट माय
You
टाइम। नाउ द
know,
पॉइंट इज
I,
दैट
I,
इन
I would like to tell you one small thing which I tweeted also. If you recollect, around 3-4 months ago, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu ji, he cried in the in Parliament. Did you watch that? Did any of you watch that? While I think
no.
there was some, I think some MPs were members of Rajya Sabha were suspended before that. So during that time or later, he cried. He says, "This temple of democracy, this temple of this one." Then, and he started crying with whatever tears rolling down on his cheeks. Then I tweeted, "If Parliament is the temple, then who is the God?" There has to be some God. There has to be some deity. Now, if the
Yeah.
deity means, since the vice president himself is sitting on the chair, so is he the deity? Should he be worshipped? Or the speaker has to be worshipped? So we have made a farce of the constitution. We have
No,
made
not
a
only that, antisocial elements. So many of our MPs are implicated in criminal cases. So many are actually antisocial elements. All the Azam Khans and the mafia dons who managed to reach their money and muscle power. What's so sanctimonious about that place?
and
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 what
and
is
and,
interesting,
uh, and they
yeah,
also
sorry.
take oath on this holy book.
That's right. Now, another thing, and Jaggi, that's addressed to you. People were so delighted when Justice Verma gave that cock and bull definition of Hinduism. It's a way of life. I mean, it's so bizarre. You can say it of Islam actually, because it governs every minute of your daily activity. You cannot, from the way you step into the bathroom, to how you tie your nara, to how you pee, how you shit, to how you sleep, everything. There it's so governed. How you relate to other human beings. There's nothing that is not mandated, legislated in Islam. So in that sense, you can call Islam a way of life.
No, Islam
But
is actually the, as per it clearly
yeah,
defines how you do, since
exactly.
everything.
But you can be a Hindu in 1,000,000,001
Mm.
ways. There
Madhuji,
is
there
no
is one
one way
danger.
of being a Hindu. So how can it be a way of life? Even three of us have very different ways of life, though we have
Madhuji, there is
something
one danger.
common. Huh?
Madhuji, there is one danger.
Hmm.
Now, the pseudo Hindutva, RSS, BJP, they tom tom. They say that no, Supreme Court has said that Hinduism is a way of life. Now, these people, since they know nothing of Hinduism, so they are Abrahamists, but then they project in the symbolical way as Hindus. They have accepted it lock, stock, and barrel. Now, the question is, if Hinduism is not a religion but a way of life, then you are deprived of all religious rights.
Yes.
A Hindu cannot have any of the religious rights under the constitution. These dunderheads and dolts do not understand this, the
Yeah.
implications of.
No, I think the remedy for that is not to say that either you're a religion or a way of life, that there are multiple things. Because, see, we are not one thing or the other. No, we are many things. We have different ways of doing things. We have things. So, that pluralism that defines us uh, prevents us from slotting ourselves either as a religion or just a general cultural
Hmm.
practice, because it varies from place to place. So it is the constitution that needs to redefine what religion or non-religion is, because I think in my point of see, the religion has been defined by the Abrahamics, that this is religion. They have said book, fundamental laws, somebody who is a originator. Okay, so by their definition, none of ours is a religion, right? So the minute we want their definition, it's a problem. We need to redefine our constitution in a way which is relevant to us. So we don't necessarily have to fall into the Abrahamic trap and saying that we are
I,
religious. That's how we will get
I
our
will tell
rights under this
you,
constitution. Yeah,
I will tell you the consequences of this,
yeah, I
saying
agree.
that
I
no,
agree with that
no, no,
consequences. In
no,
fact,
no, no, no. With a past example,
yeah,
Hinduism is not a religion; is a way of life. Is a current thought, or just Jay Sharma or somebody said it. If you see 1872 census report, there everybody who is not a Muslim or a Christian were categorized as Hindus.
correct.
All the tribals, all
Yeah.
indigenous traditions, everything was categorized as Hindu. Then subsequently, what they did was they introduced a term called animist.
Huh.
That means people worshipping nature, as if
Correct.
Hindus do not worship nature. All that
Yeah.
we do is this. So, by
Huh.
using the term animist, they have detached tribals, the so called tribals, from Hindu society. And when the tribals were converted, when the tribals, then later, the schedule, earlier the excluded areas provision was there in the Government of India Act. Now it is scheduled areas and scheduled tribes. They said scheduled tribe has no religion. So therefore, there is a Muslim scheduled tribe, there is a Christian scheduled tribe, there is a Hindu scheduled tribe, there is any kind of scheduled tribe. So now this is the danger. That means they are gradually one sect after the other. They have been cutting off from the main Hinduism.
Yeah.
So it is foolishness or stupidity on the part of any Hindu who accepts that Hinduism is a way of life.
No, I
No,
agree.
Hinduism is a religion. Whatever may be the defects in the definition of religion may be, but in the popular parlance, as is understood, Hinduism is a religion, and all those who do not follow Christianity and Islam are Hindus. So unless we make these things clear, it's very, very difficult, because gradually this is how Abrahamists keep on chipping us.
Yeah.
No, I know. But if they bring in all these essential practice nonsense again, they will again
Yes.
finish you as a religion. No,
Yes,
because then
correct, correct.
you're
Yes, absolutely.
the problem. Then you
That
have
is why,
to fall back on this way of life
no,
or
that
No,
is
practices,
also,
traditions.
that is why
You know?
sometimes it is better not to define undefinable things. The
Yeah, correct.
moment you start to suppose nature, can we
Huh.
define what is nature?
Yeah, correct.
No. When we cannot define what is nature, can you define what is who is a human being?
Yeah,
Can you simply say that one with two legs, two hands, two eyes, and all this human being? You cannot say, because there are many animals which have the same thing. So
yeah,
therefore, it is better not to define certain undefinable things, and Hinduism is one such thing which cannot be defined, more so in Abrahamic terms.
yeah, correct.
absolutely. I fully agree with you there. और अभी मैं आपको वो दिखाना चाह रही थी कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म का जो भूत हमारे ऊपर सवार किया जा रहा है, ये जा रहे हैं। आप देखिए हमारे ये बिशप भी हैं कोई वहां पे, आर्च बिशप हिंदुस्तान से, और हामिद अंसारी जी,
So,
one of the
yes,
most thuggish politicians India has ever thrown out.
but who are these guys? How do
No,
they
no,
represent any of us?
No, no,
he's
but
not.
just see
No, no,
where.
he is not Thagesh. He is a haram. This namak haram hai, because he eats
वेरी वेल सेड।
drinks.
अभी आप दिखाओ कॉन्फ्रेंस का कहाँ है, ये कहाँ हो रहा है, ये भी क्लोज अप दिखाइए।
And the
ये
fact that,
सर्विस में
no, Madhuji, one point. The fact that it is the foreigners who are more interested in protecting this constitution means it is more foreign and more alien than Indian.
Yeah, correct.
absolutely, absolutely. Not only that, if Islamists want the constitution to be protected, we know we are in deep mess. If Christian missionaries are organizing conferences there and getting all these
That means it
people
is their
invited,
constitution. It is not our constitution.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly,
correct.
exactly. And now they are using it as a stick to beat us up with, because
Yeah.
people are for the first time articulating on a large scale the infirmities that are inherent, the anti Hindu feature, the anti civilizational, uh, it's like a war on Hindu civilization, this constitution. It has declared a war and it has been very successful in deracinating us. Now, we'll conclude by asking you, Nageshwarji. I asked you this: where would you start? Minimum uh, amendments right now. That if you were in power, what are the immediate things you would do
Yeah.
to
You
the Constitution?
see, we have to be very
And then, of
practical
course,
also.
in the meantime, hopefully, rewrite a new
Yeah.
constitutional that is in sync with
You
our
see,
civilizational
more
values,
than
in
more
sync
than
with our notion
yeah,
of.
more than rewriting the constitution, because rewriting constitution, it requires a huge political capital.
Yeah.
It may lead to a lot of problems and other things, because we have to be practical also in the given situation. So what is required essentially is that the constitution says that everyone is equal before the law and law has to be applied equally.
Yeah. Correct.
Now that principle should permeate every article of the constitution. One. Two, the fundamental rights that are mentioned in the part 3 of the constitution are only certain of the rights which people which have been enlisted, whereas there are more fundamental rights which are not enlisted in the constitution but retained by the people. For instance, the way I celebrate my festival, it is not my fundamental right. Supreme Court or any judiciary or government has no business as long as I am not harming or committing harming anybody or doing certain things. So therefore, what I suggest is that there has to be one, that the article one of the articles that I would like it to be introduced is this, that the fundamental rights enumerated in this part are only certain of those fundamental rights, but the balance of the fundamental rights are retained by the people, which cannot be abridged. One.
Ah.
The second one is harmonious interpretation of the fundamental rights. There is no fundamental right which is more than the other fundamental right. And if there is one fundamental right which is more than the other, then the other cannot be fundamental.
Yeah.
As simple as this. So you cannot use one fundamental right to negate the other fundamental right. So this is the one which should be there. That means the fundamental rights have to be harmoniously interpreted in order to ensure that no fundamental right is abridged by using another fundamental right. This is the second article I want. The third article is that Article 25, I want it to be amended, that there can be freedom of religion to change the religion, but there cannot be institutionalized propagation
Yeah.
of religions. An individual can change the religion. Suppose if I, after reading books of one particular religion, and I'm fully convinced that that religion is good for me, I can do that. But there cannot be a marketing agency or a institutionalized multinational agencies coming here, spreading, using money and resources and everything, education, hospitals, all these things, and convert people as a mission, as a war. That has to be stopped. The fourth one I would like to change is this, that there has to be a specific provision in the constitution that no state, no government can take over any religious institution or endowment of any religion and manage it. If there is a problem, then you have what is called something like NCLT. Now we have, now they, when the company lands in trouble, companies are having problem, people go to the NCLT, then NCLT will pass its orders. You can have similar provision when a particular religious institution is not being managed, but government should not have any role to play in that. This is the fourth one. Then the fifth one I would like to say is that Article 27, I would like to insert one clause that Article 27 says that no tax shall be imposed for the promotion of any religion. But what is understood out of that is that even though no new tax can be this one, but out of the existing tax proceeds, you cannot use it for promotion of a religion. So minority appeasement comes there. So what
Yeah.
I would like is to insert a clause saying that no monies out of the consolidated fund of India or state or any public funds can be used for the promotion of any religion or for the benefit of any person solely based on primarily or solely or primarily based on his religion. Suppose if there is a socio-economic requirement, you help him. But then why put Muslim or Christian? A poor Muslim or a poor Christian have to be helped. We should help him. But then why should you say that only if he is a Muslim and poor, then we will help, or only when he is a Christian? So that should be taken out. This is the fifth. And then sixth one, I would say, Article 28, it would say that the prohibition on teaching of religious education does not mean teaching the civilizational texts of India. That is from Rigveda onwards. Entire literary heritage, literary corpus of our civilization has to be taught in every public school or every educational institution that has been established out of public funds. This is the sixth one. And then the last one I would like is that the Syed Shahabuddin private members bill, whereby every people of every religion, everybody has a right to establish religion, educational institution of his choice without any uh, mm, restriction or anything based on his religion, whether irrespective of majority or minority. It should not be restricted only to minorities. It should be open to everyone. So if these things are done, largely the problems of the country can be taken care of. We don't have to go for a new constitution at this stage. The second stage I would like to go is this scheduled areas. The scheduled areas are the areas which are excluded from the non-tribals. Now, these have become, if you see the map of India, and it is in these areas only all the Naxalism, terrorism, insurgency are found. Just superimpose the map of terrorism, map of insurgency, map of Naxalism, and
With Christianity.
that includes on
It
the scheduled
includes
areas,
Christianity.
yeah, including the so-called red corridor. Entire red corridor
It's
is
all
scheduled.
Christian,
Yes,
Christian dominated.
yes.
And the
So
Red
the
Corridor is actually funded,
yes.
financed, and
So what I
supported by the
do,
church.
what I do is what I suggest is that in the second stage, what can be done is the scheduled tribals sitting in that area should be protected. Now, if you take the case of scheduled tribes like Minas, like Lambadas in Andhra Pradesh, who live along with others in the same village, they are far more developed because they are in touch with the others, with the non-tribals. Whereas the tribals who are in the scheduled areas, they are backward. They are not able to use the reservation benefits because they do not have the intellectual uh, intercourse or cultural intercourse with the general public. They are excluded. In fact, in their own interest, this has to go. So, what can be done is a non-tribal can go and settle down there, absolutely no problem. But only thing is when you are buying a scheduled tribe land, you take permission from collector or sub-collector so that they would ensure that this man is not cheated. With this kind of rider, the scheduled area should be opened up. Then these areas will develop socio-economically, and the Hinduism there can be protected. So if these changes are brought into the constitution, I don't think we would require a new constitution because we are used to this system of governance for so long, and it will be difficult for us to transform into something new without knowing the benefits of that new system. Thank you.
I have a couple of other points to add, Jaggi, and tell me, you seem to agree with everything that Nageswara ji said, and I do too. But I want your feedback on the issues I'm raising. One is that if you are promising equality as the underlying value in every feature of the Constitution, it should inform every clause of the Constitution. Then the minority majority thing should just be completely done away with. You talk of citizenship rights. And as far as your community rights are concerned, they're protected separately, where you have the freedom to follow your own dharma, you have the freedom to follow your own cultural practices. The courts and the politicians can't tell you what you can or can't do. So, minority majority word should be completely taken away, because, in one sense, every community is a minority somewhere in India and a majority elsewhere. There are no permanent minorities and there are no permanent majorities, all India majorities. You know, if any community is an all India minority, I would say Brahmins.
Yeah.
All others are dominant somewhere or the other. You know, the Yadavs in in this particular belt, Muslims are dominant in not just Kashmir, where they've wiped everybody out, but in many pockets in many parts of the country, which resemble mini Pakistans, and so on and so forth. The other,
Madhuji, one point. The
yeah, may I complete
majority.
my list?
Okay.
Two, three more points, then you respond, because I really would like your
Oh,
both
yeah,
of
yeah.
you. So, minority majority, throw it into the garbage. That's it. It's done us enormous damage. Secondly, caste as a category, it has ruined us. And reservations that come with it, because equality and reservations just don't go, uh, they're not in sync. And caste has frozen identities in a way that never were. You talked about early censuses. When the British wanted, for example, we didn't even have a tradition of a second name. We never had that. Sita was not called, she was just Sita or Janaki. Janaki Putri. Ram was just Ram. He didn't have a second name. तो ये जो second name और फिर उसके साथ कास्ट की जो आइडेंटिटी, अगर आप देखें अर्ली जो सेंससेस हैं, people were very puzzled by the category itself. वरना तो बदल सकता है, कास्ट तो आपने फ्रीज कर दी है, वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में उसकी वैलिडिटी हो गई है, तो आप अगर प्रधानमंत्री भी बन जाएं, यू रिमेन दलित. अब आप देखिए, फॉरेन मिनिस्टर हैं आपके, कोई प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया है, वो दलित बोलते हैं. चीफ मिनिस्टर बन गया पंजाब का, वो दलित है. ये कैसे? इतनी फ्रोजन आइडेंटिटी. अभी तो उसको क्षत्रिय की कैटेगरी में आ जाना चाहिए अगर वो चीफ मिनिस्टर बन गया है. हमारे अगर पुराने सिस्टम के अनुसार जाते, तो आपका वर्ण, आपको आपका जो ऑक्यूपेशन है, आपने जो वर्ण धारण किया है, तो कास्ट को भी मुझे लगता है कि उठा के कूड़े की ठोकरी में फेंकना बहुत जरूरी है. क्रिश्चियन कॉन्स्ट्रक्ट है, ये एलियन कंस्ट्रक्ट है, और इसके माध्यम से समाज को तोड़ा गया है, और आज भी. और दुख की बात यह है कि मोदी सरकार ने और फर्दर एक कमीशन बिठाई हुई है, जिसका काम है कि अभी ऑलरेडी है बीसी, ओबीसी, एमबीसी, ईबीसी, अब इनके अंदर वो कुछ और नई कैटेगरीज निकाल रहे हैं. So you actually creating more schisms, more divides, and freezing them. And the constitution has been a very primary instrument. Thirdly, the word tribal itself, Nageshwar ji, is again like caste. It's not our category.
I know
जिसको
that.
आप एनिमिस्ट कहते हैं, अगर देखिए जिनको आप ट्राइबल बोलते हैं, दो तीन चीजें उनके बेसिक हैं, उनके धार्मिक वर्ल्ड व्यू में. एंसेस्टर वर्शिप, जो हर हिंदू करता है. नेचर वर्शिप, जिसकी वजह से उन्हें एनिमिस्ट किया, जो हर हिंदू करता है. कौन हिंदू है जो गंगा माँ को नहीं पूछता, जो पीपल के पेड़ को नहीं पूछता, जो सूर्य नमस्कार को नहीं मान्यता देता? नेचर वर्शिप भी हमारे उसमें है. ये जो दो तीन चीजें हैं, और अपने मिट्टी से जुड़ा, अपनी धरती से जुड़ा, तो मुझे लगता है कि ये ट्राइबल शब्द भी लाया गया ये शिज्म लाने के लिए. तो जो लोग आइसोलेटेड पॉकेट्स में रह गए, मोस्टली बाय द वे वो थे, ये जो सारी ये वॉरियर रेसेस थी, मेनी ऑफ देम वर रूलिंग डायनेस्टीज, जिनको आज ट्राइबल बोल रहे हैं. ब्रिटिश को जिन्होंने बहुत टक्कर दी थी, फिर उनको जंगलों में, जैसे बहुत से राजपूतों को पहाड़ों में जाके वो रहना पड़ा, हिमालय में चले गए, उत्तरांचल वगैरह, बिकॉज when they lost, they had to flee during Mughal era, and during British era, the so-called tribals were pushed aside. Now, I don't see, for example, if you see the description of Shabri, Shabri in Ramayana, तो कोई नहीं है, या जितने निषाद राजा हैं, या कोई कोई ऐसा नहीं लगता कि वो राम के लिए पराए हैं. उनसे कोई किस आत्मीयता भी जितनी, राम एक राजा होने के बावजूद कितनी आत्मीयता दिखाते हैं. या महाभारत में जो पांडवों के या कौरवों की तरफ जो राजा आते हैं, उनमें से आज कई सारे हैं जिनको तो ट्राइबल बोला जाएगा. उस वक्त तो ये ट्राइबल कैटेगरी भी नहीं थी. तो ये शब्द भी ट्राइबल ट्राइबल उठाओ, कूड़े में फेंको, और जो उनकी प्रोटेक्शन चाहिए एक मायने में, जब राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी किसी सिटीजन की है ही नहीं, आपने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से हटा दी, तो केवल ट्राइबल्स की राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी, मतलब आपको इन्फॉर्म्ड कंसेंट के बगैर किसी की प्रॉपर्टी कहाँ न जाए, या कश्मीर में आप खरीद नहीं सकते. वो कौन से ट्राइबल हैं, वो तो हुकूमत करते रहे, फिर भी आप 1 इंच जमीन नहीं खरीद सकते थे उनको, उनकी प्रोटेक्शन के लिए, उनकी मोनोपोली के लिए. तो ये शब्द भी निकलने पड़ेंगे, मेरा ऐसा मानना है. व्हाट यू से जस्ट नागेश्वर जी, यू add to whatever.
Yeah, I agree with you, but then these are not immediate requirements. They can be done in stages. Definitely, they have to be done. The another thing that another thing that I wanted to another thing I wanted to I suggest is this something similar to right to return. That is amending Article 11 of the Constitution, adding a new article, that is 11A, whereby any persecuted Hindu or people of Indic religion, that is Hindu, Jain, Sikh and Buddha, they can seek as a matter of right citizenship in this country. That has to be constitutionally provided for. This is very
add
important.
To it, any Islamist who's very unhappy, they should have the right and the duty to move over to Pakistan.
No, that doesn't require, because anyone can renounce citizenship even now also. There is no.
I know, but duty
but they don't know.
Yeah.
वो duty में add कर दो कि दुखी हो तो जाके सुख ले लो.
No. We should not be. No. When you make constitution, you cannot write.
I'm laughing at it.
You cannot write these kind of things.
डरा हुआ दुखी minority वाला.
You can't write these kind of things. And secondly, as you mentioned about this majority minority, some communities majority somewhere. See, this majority minority is only with regard to religion, not with regard to castes. Brahmin is a Hindu. Some other Jat or a Kamma, Reddy or somebody, they're all Hindus. So they could be within the caste composition or caste distribution, they could be minority or majority, but that is not what is recognized by the Constitution. The Constitution recognizes only the religious minority or religious majority. That's
it. Yeah, but even by that logic, Hindus are a minority in many places.
No, actually we should not get into that. When we are saying
I'm
that
not getting into that. I'm saying we need to get rid of it.
I agree.
Because it is one of the most noxious categories that has destroyed India, caused the partition of India.
Absolutely.
And
let me also remind you, this is what is given to us by Sardar Patel. Article 30. This minority majority is thing given to us by Sardar Patel, whom we lionize.
Okay, we lionize him for whatever good he may have done, and he did plenty. But we will certainly not lionize him.
And also let me tell you, 526 Hindu princes voluntarily have donated and given their kingdom and their wealth and everything, and entire credit has been misappropriated by Sardar Patel. We don't even remember those Rajas. We don't remember Trivandrum Raja. We don't remember Baroda Raja. We don't remember any big Raja who have sacrificed so much for this country. Whereas we only say that no, it is this one single man has integrated India. All these Rajas passed their resolutions in their Mantri Parishad. They gave and they readily signed and agreed. There was no Hindu Raja who did not want to merge with India. It was only the Muslim Nawabs who created problem. then where is the credit? Credit should go to the Rajas, not to Patel. But entire credit has been misappropriated by this gentleman, and whom we lionize as an Iron Man. That's it. Thank you.
Point well taken. Jaggi, what would you like?
No, I think Nageswara excessively criticizes Patel. I think I completely agree that he should not get the
No,
sole
no, I
credit.
don't criticize, only incident wise.
No. All I'm saying is that he did his job and the Rajas did their duty, and together they certainly created a thing. I think the mistake we made was after the integration, many of these princely states could easily have been retained as states. Like, for example, Mysore state. It was far better governed, and by creating a
Oh,
Karnataka
yes.
state that is very
Yes.
large, you probably messed up the whole thing.
No,
I
this
mean,
linguistic states is one of the greatest damages that has
yeah,
caused to India.
that's right.
True,
Yeah, that
true.
actually brings me to the other point about minority majority. When we talk about minority, we're only talking about when there is a minority ministry, we are talking only in religious terms. Whereas the Supreme Court has said that there are linguistic minorities and there are religious minorities. So when you say Ministry of Minority Affairs, me as, let us say, a Tamilian in Maharashtra or for the matter in Bangalore, I'm not getting any special benefits because I am a minority according to the Supreme Court's definition of a minority. And we go into the stupidity where if you are a Gujarati organization, you will set up an educational institution in Andhra so that you get a minority status there instead of being given equal rights in Gujarat. Huh? That is the whole stupidity, that you have to declare yourself a minority in order to get some basic rights that so-called religious minorities already get. So that is one stupidity that we need to correct. But more than anything else, I agree with most things that MNR said. And certainly the larger goal of getting rid of this idea of caste-based identities and all also, but that's a slightly longer-term project because it's so embedded in politics that trying to get rid of it in one shot is not going to happen. It will create more fault lines in the short run, but we have to move in that direction. The one thing I would like to do with the constitution, even if you don't write a completely new one, is to actually get it written originally in any Indian language. Meaning the problem of writing a constitution first in Hindi and then English and then translating it into Hindi has a completely different effect from conceiving a constitution in Hindi and then translating it to Hindi. Because if you were to think your process, say in Hindi, or for that matter, even in Bengali or something, you will not get a constitution that is adharmic. If once you are in English, you will get an Abrahamic constitution no matter what, because you're using their words.
You can't make
it wrong words.
You can't make a dosha and try to convert it into a roti.
That's right. And you make it a pancake, then it could be anything. No?
Yes.
Yeah? Dosa is dosa, it is not pancake.
Yes,
Yeah?
exactly.
With certain different ingredients, then there's a problem.
Yes.
So I think if we had merely rethought the same constitution with all the same clauses and say in Hindi, how would I think of this? Or in, let's say, Bengali or Marathi, then the constitution will actually sound far more authentic, even with currently its basic orientation. It would be far more dharmic and far less Abrahamic. Unfortunately, by thinking it in English, we have made it a completely adharmic constitution.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely correct.
So I think that I would do more than sit and rewrite the entire constitution from the ground up. If I could do this and say, okay, the courts will follow the Indian language version of the constitution, and English is only as an aid to that. Instead of India, that is Bharat, it is Bharat, that is India.
Yeah, that's.
और दूसरा जो final
And then I am not. You see, I am critical of anybody, irrespective of his stature. If a particular action of his is good to Hinduism, if it is harmful to Hinduism, I criticize anyone, whether it is Nehru, Patel, Gandhi, or Bose, or anybody. And I have absolutely no love for anybody, nor any hatred or anything for anybody, because they are too far in the past. I have not seen them. But only thing is their actions I am feeling. You are feeling. Hindus are feeling. So we need to dispassionately analyze, because the moment you lionize or you moment to deify someone, you will stop critically analyzing his actions. So this is what I want. This is how we know, so that once we know what has gone wrong, then we can find solutions. That is only objective. Otherwise, I like Patel as much as anybody. I like Bose to the extent where they are likable, nothing beyond.
Thank you. I like that note, which is that you judge people on each particular action.
Yes.
Don't try to lionize on the basis of selective gathering of facts while completely trying to push under the carpet facts, unpleasant facts, or inconvenient facts that don't fit into the kind of halo you want to create around that person. Enough of halo creation.
You see, one of the problems
And, and
why Patel and Bose or these people are being shown or deified or lionized by RSS BJP is simply because Patel Gandhi preferred Nehru over Patel, so therefore he has to be good man. Similarly, since Gandhi and Nehru together, they did not allow Bose to remain as the president of Congress, so therefore he has to be deified. So it is this, their hatred of Gandhi and Nehru is more on display rather than their love for Patel and Bose. So this is the problem with RSS BJP thought process, because they themselves do not have any icons. So therefore they have
no,
to
but they
use the
have
icon.
Savarkar and they don't take him
Yes,
seriously.
and they hate Savarkar. They hate Savarkar.
Or
That's the
Shama
problem.
Prasad Mukherjee. They
Yes,
don't make much
exactly.
of these two great
Yes.
Hindutva heroes,
So
or
this is the
even
problem. This is the
Aurobindo,
problem.
for
I-
example.
Hmm. Aurobindo,
Aurobindo,
Aurobindo, in fact, no, should have been lionized, should have
yes,
been deified, should have become a
absolutely,
national figure. But
yes,
then nobody bothers for him.
absolutely.
Hmm.
And I think my final take on this to conclude, apart from, I mean, you conveniently put certain agendas that are very dear to me, long term, as if the other things are going to happen tomorrow morning, Nageshwar.
And no,
अभी क्या
as
package
if
लेके चलिए?
as if my saying is going to be accepted by the
Or
government.
that there's any possibility of it being very short term. अगले इलेक्शन से पहले हमारा हो जाएगा, ऐसा नहीं होना. ये सभी लॉन्ग टर्म है, सभी
Yeah.
पूरा पैकेज लेके जाना है और ये पीसमील नहीं करना. मेरा ये मानना है कि अगर आप, जो आपने कहा कि अगर आप हिंदी में या संस्कृत में या मराठी में सोच के लिखेंगे तो उसका स्वरूप ही बदलेगा. वो बिल्कुल अलग होगी, शब्दावली उसकी अलग होगी. अंग्रेजी से जब हिंदी में करते हैं, हमारे कानून भी टांग तोड़ते हैं और देयर आर टॉर्चर. तो ये पूरा पैकेज लेके चलिए, आप अपना शॉर्ट टर्म मत समझिए और मेरे को लॉन्ग टर्म वाली गाड़ी में मत डालिए. आई डोंट हैव टू मच लॉन्गर टू लिव देन यू विल, सो वी बेटर move together.
Yeah,
But
everything is on the agenda. There's no doubt about
on the
it.
agenda is one package. The other thing that I think my concluding remark will be, while we keep on emphasizing, and आपने आज नाम भी नहीं लिया Article 25 से 30 को scrap करने का. I'm really stunned because that's your
No.
favorite theme.
No,
Article
they
30. Huh?
because no, they cannot be scrapped. They have to be there. Only thing is they have to be made more inclusive, and
Why
they have
can't
to
they
be
be
made
scrapped?
applicable to everyone.
Why can't they be scrapped?
No, of course, in that case, no, you can scrap even all fundamental rights. There's no this one.
वो तो जब मर्जी होती कर देते. Anyway,
So
we'll
there is
discuss
nothing
that
wrong in
another
that.
day, whether to scrap or dilute or whatever. But more importantly,
Because no, if
you use this. Yeah. Yes, please finish.
yeah, continue.
No, I'm saying I like the term that you used for the Constitution, which is governance manual,
Yes.
which is what it needs to be, and which is what it is not. It's actually become a weapon of warfare, civilizational warfare, and a weapon for arbitrary actions through court interventions, through ordinances, through this, that, and the other. And it's too bulky. It needs to be made compact. When we go for a long term or not so long term agenda of constitutional reform, it also needs to be made more compact. And
Yeah.
the basic language should be Hindi,
Yeah.
in which it is
Yeah,
first
any Indian language. Sanskrit would be the best.
Sanskrit definitely would be the best,
Because no, the
but
kind of
closest
depth,
to
the kind of depth that Sanskrit has, no other Indian language or no other world language has. So therefore,
Exactly, except that we have ensured that very, very few people today understand Sanskrit. So,
yeah,
in that sense, it will be. But it should be easily translatable. You know, we
yes,
should do it, that exercise. कि जो हम हिंदी में लिख रहे हैं वो क्या संस्कृत में क्या उसका स्वरूप होगा और फिर उसके बाद मराठी तो बहुत आसान है तमिल भी आसान है
every
once you've
language,
done
once
that.
it is Sanskrit,
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
everything.
So with these words, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, this discussion. I hope our viewers have also done so. It's almost 2.5 hours, but I could go
Yeah, yeah.
on. So much to learn from both of
Yes.
you. Viewers, I hope you too enjoyed it as much as I did. Lot to
I,
learn from both these.
I would
Uh,
like to say one point, that is our national motto as inscribed on the national emblem is Satyameva Jayate. Truth alone triumphs. Whether, however uncomfortable or unpleasant the truth may be, let us learn to speak the truth. Let us learn not to tell lies. Let us not try to cover up anything, because the moment you stop talking truth, then all the problems will arise. So it is that I have been following and I'll continue to follow. And that is why, whatever sometimes I say, when I say things which are against a popular belief or popular myth, then people try to misunderstand me, or people try to abuse me or do what this one. But nonetheless, I'm a stickler for truth. I always speak truth, and that is what I request and appeal to everybody, particularly Hindus, that we should learn to speak truth. Thank you.
even if जयते ना हो
Yeah,
हमारे
yeah.
लाइफ टाइम में अगर ना भी हो जाते कम से कम सच तो बोलो क्योंकि
Yes.
कवर अप करते करते हमने अपने को इतना कायर बना लिया है और इतना इनकॉम्पिटेंट बना लिया है आज हम हमारे में अगर वो है ही नहीं दुश्मन का पहचान इतना झूठ बोल लिया अपने से कि दुश्मन और सज्जन कौन है इसकी भी पहचान हमने खो दी
Yes.
है और
Yes.
सारी बंदूकें नागेश्वर राव पे तन जाती हैं जो वो ट्रूथ बोलते हैं परंतु जो लोग झूठ बोल के आडंबर फैला के हमको दिशाहीन बना रहे हैं उनके साथ असली हमारी लड़ाई है या जो जिनका मजहबी ड्यूटी है कि हमको बेवकूफ बनाए mislead करें. So I honestly enjoyed it thoroughly. The two of you made excellent jugalbandi. I'm delighted both of you could be here today. I'm missing very much Shankar Sharanji, who, under very pressing circumstances that he's very unhappy about, had to opt out of this discussion because he too would have a lot to contribute. But both of you, I think this Jugalbandi we will have on many other topics as well. इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ, viewers, please, I don't have time for your comments, questions, whatever. I'm sure you have a lot to absorb. In the meantime, please do share this video in particular. I'm going to actually even get it transcribed and send the text to both of you of what you've spoken
Yeah.
and
Thank you so
then
much.
publish it. So your job will be to edit what you've spoken. I hope you
Yeah,
will
yeah.
agree with it because I think a lot of interesting things came out today from this conversation, which we should publish it as a valuable record for our long-term, short-term, mixed mid-term agenda of constitutional reform.
No. Yeah. Okay.
इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ आप सबसे हम माफी मांगते हैं आपके कोई सवाल जवाब का टाइम नहीं मिला पर प्लीज डू शेयर एंड क्या बोलते हैं सब्सक्राइब टू दिस चैनल लाइक दिस वीडियो एंड डू प्लीज दिस वन पर्टिकुलरली I rarely plead with you but I think today there's a lot to learn from all that was discussed with regard to our republic and the constitution that's supposed to govern it or is misgoverning it or malgoverning it. तो इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ शुभ
Thank
रात्रि
you. Thank you.
जय हिंद जय भारत।